Bruges. We expect it to be. You know, the 3.5 million visitors every year come to this beautiful capital of the lace, and I think 5% of them come on this day for the Tour of Flanders. Hello everybody, I'm Phil Liggett and welcome again to another day of great coverage here with World Cycling Productions. In fact, this is our 13th edition, but for the Tour of Flanders, it's the 87th running of the event. Now, just as we thought this race might be getting into a bit of a rut, they've changed the route. Yes, it's still more than 250 kilometres, but there are 19 climbs on this, and most of them coming in the last 80 kilometres of the race. In addition, we're not off round the coast up to Ostend anymore. We dive straight south into the heart of Flanders. Of course, the #1 favourite is Giovanni Lombardi. Is he really bluffing? Is he really sick? Or is he really on great form like he was when he won the Het Volk race earlier this year? Well, we're going to find out. You know, this is a man who's won this race 3 times. He's going for the record of 4, and he's finished in the top 3 in 8 times in those top 3 places. It's a marvellous record, and he might go one better today. Of course, there are others here to beat him. There are 200 riders in the field. #1 is Andrea Tafi, who won the race last year. A massive crowd in Bruges as the Belgian lovers of cycling here wait to see riders sign in as they come up onto the podium. And a little bit of a pensive look here because the Belgians, of course, are all shooting now for Johan Museu. One of the early big names, Mirko Celestino, second in Milan-San Remo. Clearly a man on form and looking to improve his World Cup pacing today. Dario Pieri, who finished 5th in Milan-San Remo, has also finished 2nd in this event in the past. Top German expectations from Stefan Westermann, 2nd last year in Paris-Roubaix and 2nd just last week in a local classic here called the Grand Prix E3. And this is his team captain, Eric Zabel, 3 wins under his belt and tipping Westermann as the winner. World Cup winner, Paolo Bettini, after his great victory in Milan-San Remo. Luca Paolini finishing 3rd, a teammate indeed of Bettini, and a very strong team. And the big cheer reserved for Johan Museu, 3 times the winner, and today can he make it 4 and take the record? Recently a family man, Enrico Cassani, 7th in the Tour of Flanders last year. And Tom Boonen, no longer with the US Postal Service team, moving across to Quick Step this time around and finished 5th in Het Volk, while Fabio Baldato here has had 2 second places in this event, still looking for the win. Raivis Milošević, a winner of the 3 days of Depana just down the road a couple of days ago. And the crowd here bringing out the family pets as well by the look of it. All eyes to the front again now as they continue to see the stars step on stage. Filippo Pizarro, 21 years of age and winner of Tirreno Adriatico. He's a lot to do yet though to equal the feat of Micheli Bartoli, who won this event in 1996 and is showing a great return to form. And Ludo Dierksens, winner of the first race of the European season in February, the Grand Prix Ouverture. Former stage winner, the Tour de France, Serge Baguet. And the man who knows what it's like to win this event, he's done it in 1999, Peter van Petegem. Oscar Fleur, twice a world champion, on a new team at Rabobank this year and has good form. While there are other big names here too, like Dave Brylant of the Marlux team, a team which is riding well. And just coming through the shelter there, Joe Plankett, a slim year last year for him, but he's still a very good rider, and his teammate Philippe Gaumont. And this is Max van Hayes Llyich, 2nd in Het Volk earlier this month, or rather late last month, and Max himself going well, while Andrea Tafi, the defending champion, looking very content with his ride last year, and the world champion Mario Cipollini, 4th in Milan-San Remo as well. Nico Martin, winner of the prologue in the Paris-Nice last month, and a rider who can surprise. While there are plenty of other contenders making up a great field in Bart Voskamp, former Tour of Luxembourg winner in Mark Wouters, all of these riders hoping that today will be their day in a race which is known as La Ronde.
Stefan, looks like the weather's closing in a little bit for the Tour of Flanders, but this Tour of Flanders is always It's a bit strange this year because nobody seems to be the #1 favourite. There are about 10 guys, and I think you got a good chance.
I hope so. So I'm in good shape, and we will see. So I think the stuff from Quickstep was sickness and everything. It was just for the newspapers. I think they are very fit, and they are the favorites for me.
The important thing about Tour of Flanders and Paris-Roubaix is you have to have the motivation and you have to know the course.
Yeah, so I'm 10 years in the peloton. I know the course, and you need a lot of luck too. So, and I think that will be that makes a difference today.
The team behind you, or is it going to be for Eric Zabel as well?
No, the team is behind me. Thank you.
Well, Brad, this is always a special race. I think you enjoy these races up in the north here.
Yeah, Flanders is always special. You know, it's the classics period. It's Wevelgem, Roubaix, and we've just done 3 days of the Pan, so this period is quite important to a lot of people, and especially in our team with the director here, Marc Madio, who's a Roubaix winner himself. So everyone's really motivated, and you know, this typical day in Belgium. So hopefully the rain won't arrive, but you know, it'll still be a good day.
These races are all about experience, and you've been to Tour of Flanders before. Are you starting to learn a little bit about where to place yourself for the climbs?
Yeah, I mean, these sort of races are all about experience, and I learned a hell of a lot last year. Like you say, being well placed on climbs, sections and pavé. You get to know the roads as well, and everywhere in Belgium looks the same, but the more you ride, the more races you race in Belgium, you get to know just a little bit more when the climbs are coming up, what to do in between the climbs, and it's all about experience. And you know, the experience I gathered last year will be great help today, I think.
Good luck today.
Thanks a lot.
So, first time at the Tour of Flanders, it's a bit of a scary thing to come to for the first time, I would think, because it's a race with a huge reputation.
Yeah, well, it has, and we went over the parcours in the last week or so, and it seems very hard. Some of the climbs I've never seen before are very difficult. With the rain today that I think will come out, I think it's going to be a tough day.
Talking to your teammate Brad Wiggins, he's quite excited about this race. He says that the Français de Jeu get very motivated because of your team manager Marc Madio.
Yeah, well, Mark's got a big history with the classics. He always he was a big classics rider, and he's got a bit of a soft spot for them. So when they come around, he gets motivated. He starts, you know, getting everyone motivated, and the whole team lifts that little bit.
But it's again looks to me like a typical Tour of Flanders day. Lots of wind, possibility of rain, and plenty of cobblestones.
Yeah, well, it's going to be dangerous, and you know, with all those guys rushing onto all the wet cobbles, it's going to be a real shit fight out there. So hopefully we can stay up the front. Thanks.
It's nice to be back at the Tour of Flanders. You've not been here for a couple of years.
No, I mean, I was just saying to Bjarne on the way here that when I came here in 1982, I never thought I'd be back, you know, 21 years later. So it's nice to be back on the road.
It's been an up and down team manager's career for Sean Yates, but now you're with a big team, and you seem pretty motivated. How are the boys this morning?
Good. I mean, we have the defending champion, so to speak, Andrea Taffy. We have Hoffman, who's going very well. We have a strong team to support them. I mean, things could have been better on average, but we're confident.
Taffy's a very special bike rider. Never really had very many victories in his career, but when he does get one, it's always a big one.
Yeah, I mean, he's won a lot of World Cups. I can't remember exactly, but you know, like you say, he's had a few big victories, and he's a rider with a big class. So you know, hopefully today he'll show that.
Team tactic today, is it to let the other teams fight it out amongst themselves, or have you got your own plan?
Our tactic is to make sure that Taffy and Hoffman are in the front group after the Koppenberg. There's no one team, maybe Rabobank, but it's very open this year, so I think we follow and we see, but the most important is that those two are in contention after the Koppenberg. Thank you.
Ladislav, it's great to see you. A couple of years ago we thought you were going to abandon the sport, came back, rode the Tour de France, and now you're at the Tour of Flanders, a race that you know very well.
Yeah, the sport life is still continuing for me. I was, I mean, I took the break 8 months, and I think it didn't affect me bad. I mean, I relaxed in that time, and I built up the system, and I came back with a big morale to race again.
You think that psychological rest was what you needed to come back and do all that work that you do in a race like the Tour de France for Armstrong?
That's what I see sometimes with the great athletes. They cannot stop like in one time. They always do the kind of stop and then they come back, and so that's probably like part of the sport life. I mean, end of the sport life. so.
How's it possible, though? Because what a long career you've had. The track, World Championships, and then coming through in a huge career on the road as well.
It's probably because I love cycling, so this is my life. It's my lifestyle, and I cannot live without it. Thank you.
Christian, not seen you for a while, but form's looking pretty good.
Yeah, it's doing all right. Just come back up here into Belgium a little unexpectedly, but tried to help out Max and Eki as much as possible today.
Good to see Max riding so well, because he's a rider whose career I've followed for many years now. And this year he's kind of been promoted to team leader because of the absence of George Hincapie.
Yeah, it's come at a great time that he's come into form. But yeah, Max has been just always on the teetering spot and always been in a supportive role. And now that he has some support of us, who knows what he could do today.
Well, it's a difficult race, Tour of Flanders, and as always, weather conditions are typical. The important thing is keeping at the front before the early climbs, and then it's every man for himself.
Yeah, there's even more climbs this year, so it just one after another in the final today. So if he keep out of trouble and stay at the front, like you said, yeah, he should be good. All right.
Max, it's great to see you riding for US Postal Service. We go back a long time to the El Motorola days. It must be good to ride alongside guys like Lance and George again.
No, it's yeah, real nice, real good team and good organized, and just really happy to be back in a team like this.
You've had a very good start to the season, and a lot of people put you as an outsider for Tour of Flanders, a race that you know.
Yeah, I know the race, but this week I had a little bit problems with infection in my head and a little bit stomach, so I don't know how my condition is now at this moment, but I will do my best.
Who's your #1 favorite? Everyone says all the story about Quick Step this week has been a lot for the press, and maybe they're just hiding their game.
Yeah, I think also, but I think for me the favorite is I think Bettini. Okay, bye.
Tour of Flanders is a very important race for Lotto, but it seems as if this year there's been a bit of fighting between you guys and Quick Step.
Well, in the media it is, but not on the riders, I think.
Who's going to be your big favorite for today's race?
Peter from Petegem.
It's a race that he loves, and it's a race that you have to be super motivated for, because even when you have bad luck, as everybody does in the Tour of Flanders, you have to keep coming back.
Yeah, but he's living here, so he's super motivated. He knows exactly the roads, and that's, I think, really important in this race.
Do you see Quick Step as a big danger, because they've got Boonen, Vandenbroucke, Museo, Bettini. It's a lot of men in the finale.
Yeah, normally they're the strongest team, but it doesn't mean that the strongest team is winning, so we'll see.
Good luck. Thanks. Stewie, great start to the season. Nice jersey. Yeah. Tour of Flanders, race that you like.
Oh yeah, I mean you gotta learn it. You have to like it, otherwise there's no point really even taking the start. It's just one of those races like Paris-Roubaix where it can be a killer day. Really hard conditions, pave, cobble climbs and wind, so I've got to go. The race has begun.
The start again of the Tour of Flanders, the 87th running of the event, as they roll away now to a gentle start. I can tell you, in fact, that Andrea Taffy has had a problem with his bike and is now trying desperately to change it. Trouble with the cleats, apparently. While the field is leaving, Taffy is not. But he's not showing any signs of concern, because there is quite a neutralised section of the event and he should have plenty of time to catch up. There's the world champion, Mario Cipollini, doing justice to the rainbow colours of world champion. A lot of riders also saying that the Rabobank squad, especially Michael Bogart, will ride well today. One thing's for sure, they can expect many thousands of spectators out on the route. Even though this is a new route and it's brought in 3 more climbs, making a total of 19 in all, and a very tough end to the day. So this is a look back at the rollout. All of this happened earlier today, and we can now go out onto the course.
Look at the long stretch of the main field right now. They're going through the town of Edelaar. If you come up from the other side, you're climbing away from the town of Oudenaarde, where there is now a new museum dedicated to the Ronde van Vlaanders, the Tour of Flanders. Everybody accelerating into the safety of that main peloton right now, Phil, and they're ticking away on the kilometers. They know very shortly they will be making the acceleration towards the Klausberg, and that time gap at the top there, you can see on the right-hand side of the two figures, inside of 10 minutes right now with 105 kilometers to go. And with the kind of terrain we're looking at, we're probably going to have to count around about 2 hours and 35-40 minutes before they get to the finish line here in Meerbeke.
Sharp left. We've just taken the gap inside 10 minutes. Just a reminder about the 4 riders still away. Michael Rick of Gerolsteiner, Jackie Durand, Thomas Lisa and Vincent van der Koeien. He rides for the Flandern team. I beg your pardon, he rides for the Bank Giro Lottery team. Johan Capio, the team manager of that, former champion of Belgium. Retired now, I think this will be his 2nd season out of the sport, might be his 3rd. But he'll be very pleased with the ride by Van der Koeien, who is still up there at 9:52. Lerpegem is where we are with the peloton, concentrating on the peloton, of course, because this is where the action is, and it's certainly where the winner will come from. There's no way those 4 will stay away today. There's a lot of concerted action, particularly from Rabobank, who have split up the Quick-Step team, and that might be a good move, because Quick-Step, we're having a look here at the 4 leaders, Quick-Step get control of this race like they did in Het Volk, then nobody else is going to get a look in, and that'll be a great concern to the top teams.
Well, I'm quite surprised, Phil, as we looked back at the main field there, really to see Rabobank having so close to the front at this stage of the game. I would have expected them to hold back a bit and see 1 or 2 of the other big teams setting the tempo on the front end of the main field. That was the tactic on previous occasions here at the Tour of Flanders. The team of Johan Museeuw have hidden themselves until the more important strategic points of the race. Jackie Durand here, former champion of France, unbelievable bike rider. He's always prepared to go out on the attack. He's obviously getting pretty close towards the autumn of his career right now, but never at all shy of going out on a long raid like this.
Now, and there's our newcomer, Van der Koeien. This is Thomas Lisa, been a great track cyclist, and he's developed into a very good road racing cyclist. And Team Coast certainly need a man like Lisa today to have a good ride, because the morale couldn't be any lower at the moment with all the problems the team has had.
Very strange indeed, because in fact to this moment Jan Ullrich does not have his racing license issued, and in fact if he doesn't get it tomorrow he won't be able to start in the Circuit of the South, which is supposed to be his new expected start to the season. Apparently the Team Coast have to lodge 2 million euros, which is basically $2 million US, with the Union Cycliste Internationale, and I don't think they're going to be able to put that together. So that's a long story, and I don't know that we're going to hear the end of that in the next month or so.
Well, not unless you particularly volunteer in Paul to put the money up.
Well, I thought you might dig into those pockets of yours, Phil. You've got some pretty rich friends around the world who might like to see Jan Ullrich getting himself his racing license, but I'm quite sure it is something that will get sorted out eventually, even if Jan Ullrich does have to walk away from Team Coast and go to one of the many teams that would certainly love to pick him up, including CSC. And of course, I'd heard from my very good friend Jim Okovits that Team Phonak were very interested with getting Jan Ullrich on board as well.
Mind you, it won't be for 2 million. They'll be able to bargain at this stage of the time, because Jan knows now if he doesn't race soon, he's going to find a comeback. They're pretty much impossible, and I'm sure he would love to get turning those wheels again. And if he doesn't ride the Circuit de la Start, it means, of course, he won't have his clash with Lance Armstrong, who's also choosing that race.
Well, I don't think it'll be that much of a clash between Jan Ullrich, who I can't remember turned to pedal in anger for the last time. It'll be more a bathing himself into the sport for the first time in about 18 months for Jan Ullrich, who's had a very up and down relationship with the sport over the last couple of years. Still Robbie Hunter, if you look on the right hand side there, Phil, doing an unbelievable job taking the pace up, and in fact they've eaten about 1 minute of the advantage of the 4 leaders. Kop van der Wegstrijd on the left hand side is the group of 4 leaders, but Rabobank are obviously very serious right now, and they may feel that once we get to the first section of very closely related climbs, that this main field is going to start blowing up all over the roads of Flanders here right now. Durand going to the front, knows how to set the tempo, keep the group motivated, keep the pace high. He knows that as long as they can keep an average speed of around about 42, 43 kilometers an hour, they won't lose that advantage all that quickly. And It's really now for these guys at the front just a question of sharing the pacemaking. Thomas Lisa coming up through now in the light blue jersey. And the main field quite happily letting Rabobank do for what I would say, Phil, is actually much too much work right now. They've got too many men to the front end of this main field because there's still 2.5 hours of racing to go. 101 kilometers. They're going through the town now of Petegem. That will be 146 kilometers covered in the bike race so far, and they're probably not very much more than 8 or 9 kilometers from the start of the Klausberg. The leading group of 4 are an awful lot closer than that. Bramati going through. He's quite prepared to help the pacemaking on the front end of the main field as well. A little further back, 1 or 2 of the lime green and white jerseys of Team Phonak riding the front. Michael Bogert looks very comfortable here in the Ronde van Vlaanderen, very happy to come to this bike race. It's got such a huge reputation. Adrie van der Poel is a man who won this bike race a few years ago when I thought on that occasion Sean Kelly was going to win this race.
So did Sean Kelly.
Kelly was one of the riders who was one of the kings of the classics in the 1980s. He won all the big bike races, and in fact that year he was beaten in almost a photo finish on the line by Adrie van der Poel, and that was really one of the big regrets of his career, if he could say he had any regrets, not winning the Tour of Flanders.
It was a major regret. It was the one race he always wanted to win. He finished second 3 times, and he lost again later the following year to Claude Craquillon, another man who would never normally get near Sean in a sprint finish. No, but Sean wasn't to win that race. He won plenty of other races, Paris-Roubaix, Milan-San Remo, Tour of Lombardy, but the Tour of Flanders eluded him. And really, in many people's eyes, this is the best classic of the season. Certainly in the eyes of the Belgian people, they turn out in their tens of thousands. You couldn't move in the square in Bruges. Almost impossible to actually do your job because it took time to walk through the crowds to get to any of the riders or their team cars. And then within a minute of the race leaving town, so too is the road blocked up with all the cars as the people try to make their way to the nearby motorways where they can get out onto the race route. And in fact, the bizarre scene we saw driving to the finish was that the motorway had put up signs warning of stop traffic because coaches had disgorged all of the occupants to watch the passage of the race go under the freeway, which of course would be totally not allowed in Great Britain or the United States. But that's the pull of this big bike race.
Gianpaolo Mondini was the rider there from Domenica Vacanzi at the back there, making his comeback to the sport after a suspension. Formerly a member of US Postal Service. Yaroslav Ekimov is the US Postal Service rider getting into the back end there. At the back end of the main field right now, you can see a lot of riders starting to get their early morning extra jerseys off, their overshoes off, getting ready for a serious change in the pace on the front end of this main field. Still David Ramati on the front deciding to help along with the Rabobank train, and obviously poor old Robbie Hunter from South Africa there in second place has been sacrificed today. He may well not even see the finish line in Meribeke. Such is the tactics of the sport of professional cycling. Many riders on a team will have to dedicate themselves to doing the work for 180 or 190 kilometers, leaving the glory and the finishing off job to their stronger teammates towards the end.
Well, they have got a good team. There's 3 possible winners there: Stephen de Jong, Oscar Freire and Michael Bogart. The rest are there now to drive the race on and hope they get in the right position when the time comes. We're betwixt the Wolverberg and the Kleisberg at the moment. We're probably around about 12 kilometers from the Kleisberg, and that is quite a steep climb. We'll be climbing it for the 14th time in the history of the Tour of Flanders. The first time we climbed that mountain was, well, it is a mountain here in Flanders, I suppose, 1955, and that was the year that Bobet won.
Looking at the yellow flags, the Lion of Flanders flags, Phil, they're all out there this afternoon, aren't they? They're obviously flying high for Johan Museo, who they're all hoping. Nice to see the leader of the World Cup at the back here, Paolo Bettini. A superb ride by him, a superb ride really by the team to get themselves that victory, slipping away from the sprinters before the end there in Milan-San Remo. But today I think the name might be a different man. One man we haven't seen in the main field right now is Frank Vandenbroucke. An unbelievable up and down career that young man has had. I've known him since he was about 8 or 9 years old. I used to race with his uncle Jean-Luc Vandenbroucke, and he's had a very hard time, and it really just goes to prove, despite all the difficulties had with the governing bodies, to come back and ride at the level that he's able to right now, I think is quite a remarkable feat.
Back at the front, Hunter steadying the pace. Paolo Bettini choosing this little lull between the two climbs to drop back there, probably take his shoes warmers off and get ready for the action, but he's confident man who will go behind this big peloton and then feel he can pick his way back through it to the front before the roads narrow down again. Kai Hundertmark from Telecom was also back there now, and these are the riders now from Quick Step. This is Luca Paolini at the front, and just behind him there is the man Paul was just talking about, Frank Vandenbroucke. So I think probably with the World Cup leader at the back, they've all come to the back just to keep an eye on things. Wilfred Peters there in the team car. I bet he wished he was still in the bike race.
Well, I'm not sure, especially with the temperature being like it was at the start of today's race. Wilfred Peters had a very long and illustrious career, the big buddy of Johan Museeuw. He probably does miss the bike racing sometime, but look at that organisation of the team there on the right-hand side, Phil. They all went to the back at the same time. There was Paolo Bettini making sure that everything was ready for the acceleration which is going to come, and they're going to move together forward on block as a team.
Celestino here, winner, or second rather, of Milan-San Remo. Great result for him, breaking away on the descent, going into the finish in San Remo, and got a great second place. Surprising rider, this man, and comes up with some very, very good results. So Medico also doing what everybody seems to be doing just now, back here with the four leaders. Not too far away from the next climb, which will be the Kleisberg for the four leaders.
Well, they shouldn't be too far away, Phil, from starting that climb right now, and this is it as they go around the corner. It's a short, steep climb from this side over the Kleisberg. It's called the Mont de l'Enclus in French. They drop off the other side, across the bottom, and then it's the Kanak De Burgh, and it's steepest close to the summit there, as you can see, at 15%. It's a tarmac, a well-surfaced climb. The average grade is 6%, and they climb up just 66 meters in altitude. It's not very much, but it's just the fact that there are 19 such climbs here in the Tour of Flanders that makes this bike race so tough.
Well, I suggested they'd have about 8 minutes at the climb, and they're slightly better than that, just approaching 8.5 for Michael Rick, Giron, Lisa and Van der Kooi. But I think they'll lose a best part of a minute on this climb. It's 1.1 kilometers and is quite steep. Steepest part is 15%, but it runs out with quite a steep average as well. And the hills get closer together now as we go into the heart of the Flanders countryside. Thomas Lisa setting the pace here at the front.
It's also nice to see that the sun is coming out right now after what announced itself at the start of the day as going to be a very grim day in the saddle for the Tour of Flanders here, because there was a small misty rain coming in off the sea in the early part of the morning, but they did announce that the sun would be au rendezvous in the latter part of the afternoon. But still, with this wind, Phil, coming off the coast, it really is a chill Tour of Flanders this afternoon, with the temperature 6 or 7 degrees centigrade when you bring in there the chill factor. You can see that time gap still coming down nicely as far as the main field are concerned, just inside of 8.5 minutes right now. A big bike rider there on the right hand side, Jackie Durand, a wearer of the yellow jersey in the Tour de France, if you remember, in Saint-Brieuc, when the weather changed so dramatically after the first 40 or 50 riders had started, and many of the big favourites having to go off at the back end of the main field and losing huge amounts of time on what was a very difficult and precarious prologue time trial.
That's right, and it was the one that took out the British champion Chris Boardman on the very first half mile of his Tour de France. He was out. Very sad. Jackie Durand, a specialist of the long breaks. He's done them in just about every race he's ever ridden. I interviewed him this year on the stage at the Tour Down Under in Adelaide, and I asked him at what stage we could expect the long breakaway, and he just smiled. But he loves these long attacks, and they've worked for him on many occasions. As we now start the climb of the Kleisberg, just over a kilometre, a little more than half a mile.
Well, actually, a couple of years ago, he became the first Frenchman to win Paris Tours after a 42-year absence of the Frenchman at the top end of the podium in that classic. And that's a classic that I certainly wouldn't have said suited his style. but he was able to surprise everybody with a long move on that occasion too, and that was back in 1998. He is a great bike rider, Phil. He's been the great champion of France. 2 times he was the French national champion. He's not really won all that many races, although his total is 36. Most of those are in the small French exhibition races, but the ones that he has done have always been reasonably big, world-class performances.
Well, he's done 14 seasons now as a pro, and that's a long time to stay at the top at this level, because each year the level seems to get that much higher. 8:18, so the peloton still sitting out a little way from the start of the Klijsberg, still showing the pace with Rabobank and Quickstep. We're into Berchem. 8:17, 8:16 now, 93 kilometers to go. Virtually all of the climbs. The leaders have got 4 behind them, so they've got 15 left.
Picking their way through Berchem, and that's just on the outskirts for these riders for the Klijsberg as well. They'll have around about 6 kilometers, I would say, in arrears over that leading group of 4 riders. Again, Robbie Hunter not saving anything at all right now. It's a question of dedicating yourself to the team's performance on a day like today, and they've obviously got, Phil, I think, a lot of confidence in their 2 top men, Oscar Freire and of course Micheli Bartoli. I think, as you said, the big attackers like Johan Museeuw are going to have a very hard time getting rid of Micheli Bartoli on a stage like today. But if Bartoli wants to win this, basically he's got to try and do it on his own. So they'll try and have a 2-pronged attack. They'll try and have Micheli Bartoli and Oscar Freire together at the end. Freire will try and follow the large groups, and the lone attack will try and come from the Micheli Bartoli side.
One thing's for sure, we're in for a terrific finale over the hills of Flanders, and you can guarantee that the Tour of Flanders will never let you down. The course makes the race, and the riders have to race it. 2.9 kilometers for the peloton now to the Klijsberg, as we look here at Robbie Hunter, South Africa. Far and away the best professional from that country. Driving on at the front, behind is David Bramati and Wilfried Kretskins of Quickstep. And then we've got the rest of the Rabobanks all watching. You think there are only 2 teams in it at the moment, as there'll be plenty of more hoping they can latch up to the train when the moves come. And if you think it's easy, just look at the long line of riders now, just hanging on to the tail of what is a very compact head of the peloton.
I tell you one thing, these riders we're looking at the back end of the main field right now are in a situation which is known in cycling terms as being on the rivet. They are sitting on the front end of their saddles right now. That expression comes from the fact that in the old days, the leather saddles used to have a big brass rivet on the front. And if you were sitting on the front end of that, it meant you were right at the limit of bursting. And I think 1 or 2 of these riders must be thinking right now, what are we doing here? This is the dangerous side for me, Phil, of the sport of professional cycling nowadays out on the open roads. There are so many of these traffic circles and what they call traffic furniture on the road that makes it very dangerous, especially if you're at the back end of the main field, because sometimes you come into a corner like that and it can be totally unannounced what's out on the exit, and that's when we get some pretty dramatic crashes. Let's have a look what it looks like from the rear end of the main field. Pretty scary.
Yes, you've got to keep your eyes and your wits about you, and when you are, as Paul has said, on the rivet, then you're just holding that wheel in front and hoping it goes the right way. Dodging through the on-stay rider there is Alvaro Gonzalez de Galdeano. This is Robbie Hunter. That looks like Kretskins.
Micheli Bartoli on the far side, keeping himself to the front end of the main
field.
field.
Well, another man, you know, could win this race. He's got terrific form. Servaes Knaven, former champion of the Netherlands. These are hard-working men now, and that gap on the top of your picture keeps coming down at 7 minutes 57. Inside 8.
Everyone getting nervous now because I don't really feel the Klijsberg is a climb where it will make very much decision. It's a fairly easy climb in terms of professional cycling, but everybody wants to be in the first 40 or 50 places for the Kanak De Burgh, which is a very difficult steep climb which runs out at around about 14% Hunter, I don't think, will be going too far towards the finish line in Meribeke today, because he's doing an awful lot of work. You can see now the pink and blue jerseys of Team Lamprey moving up to the front, and maybe a chance for the Italian rider Maximilian Sciandri to get a good performance in what he admitted to me this morning is probably going to be his last Tour of Flanders, but he did that 2 years ago.
But also, Paul, watch out for Cipollini again. He's come forward with a couple of teammates at a time when he expects the race to crack, and make sure he's in the right position. He's not very far off the nose of this peloton, and that indicates to me that Mario Cipollini is looking for a result today. You can see him tucked in with two teammates around him in the Domina Vacanzi squad, the boys with the striped zebra kit on. As Hunter just knows all about zebras where he comes from in South Africa, but he is now just driving on the front. Clearly committing suicide as far as winning the race goes. Not his job today, even though he packs a sprint. He's there to hold this race at a high speed and try and stop too much change of movement behind, and hopefully will crack the field.
Well, let's not discount Mario Cipollini completely either, Phil, as a sprinter, because he finished 9th in this race last year with the World Cup leaders jersey on his shoulders after winning, of course, Milan-San Remo at the start of last season, then going on to win Ghent-Wevelgem in probably what was one of his most attacking races ever of his career. I think he enjoys these races in Belgium. He enjoys the adulation of the crowd, because when he comes here, they are so dedicated to supporting the man who has to be one of the most flamboyant characters the sport has had in the last 10 or 15 years. And his bus at the start this morning was pretty discreet, wasn't it?
It was, and I don't know anybody that actually dislikes Mario Cipollini. They admire him immensely.
Except the Union Cycliste International.
Well, they know. He just keeps on pushing the rules to the limit, but of course he gets rewarded by a heavy fine and a lot of publicity.
Well, there was quite a good April Fool's joke out on the internet on the 1st of April this year. They said that the white shorts have been banned, and would have been an awful big earner, I think, for the Union Cycliste International, the governing body, because I don't think Cipollini would have listened to that if the rule had been instigated, would he?
Not at all. These are the leaders of the peloton now as they climb up the Kleinsberg. This might cause a change of leadership. Bramati heading the charge. Robbie Hunter just dropped back slightly on the climb, but not too far. Cipollini wise to try and stay in position, but he'll find the climb a little bit of a struggle. It's quite steep, this climb, and it's just over a kilometre long.
Marco Cipollini moving up into about 5th position on the right-hand side there in the pink and blue jersey of Lamprey. Mario Cipollini very close to the front, keeping himself up to the front and out of danger. Bramati as well, Phil, is doing an excellent job here for the team, and this is what it looks like at the back end of the main field. This is Mondini wearing number 98, and you can see one or two riders starting to feel the pressure of what has been a fairly fast race so far, just a shade inside of 40 kilometers an hour average.
Well, they've hung on just about as they get over the top of the climb, quickly shift up the gears and hook on to the back of the peloton, which might ease down a little bit. We're on towards the Kanak De Burgh next. 7:13 is the gap.
There's a chance now, once you get over the top of this climb here, the Mont de l'Enclos or the Kleinsberg, it's completely flat for about 150 meters, and then you plunge off on what is quite a steep and fast descent. As you can see, the acceleration happening here. They've then got around about 5 or 6 kilometers to the next climb, and there'll be I think a general acceleration will start towards the bottom of the Kanak De Burgh, which comes up next, the 5th climb of the day, because then you plunge off the Kanak De Burgh, and it's the start of what I've always regarded as being the first real strategic point of this bike race, the Eau de Quaremont, the Old Quaremont.
88 kilometers to go, 55 miles to the finish. All of the climbs that matter are now in this sector, and they're going to come thick and fast, and this big peloton soon is going to become a man-o-man battle front, I think. 7-11. That's a pretty famous name in the old days, wasn't it?
Reminds me of a bike racing team they had from the United States.
Yeah, once rode the Tour de France.
I was reading some stuff just recently about Steve Bauer taking part in the World Championships again, but that was through the organisation of the World Championships, which are going to be in Canada towards the end of the season. It'd be nice to see Steve Bauer again. He was a great bike rider. He loved these classics as well. Always got himself psyched up for races like the Tour of Flanders, and was so very close to winning Paris-Roubaix by finishing second in what has to have been probably the closest of margins.
Yeah, centimetre. Well, unfortunately, everybody remembers the winner. Who did win it?
I think it was a bloke by the name of Eddie Planckaert.
Ah, there you go.
Famous cycling name. Kop van der Weekstrijd, these are the 4 leaders now on the start of the Kanak De Burgh. Jackie Durand, Michael Llyich, Thomas Leyser and Van Kooi. Very happy to get himself some publicity for his team. That's the average grade, 8.16% the Kanak De Burgh. It's over a kilometre, and you can see at the steepest part there is as it gets up towards the summit. This is one of those horrible climbs that seems to get steeper as it gets towards the top, and it's 13% the gradient at the top end of the climb. Not a very pleasant one.
It's only been a regular in the Tour of Flanders since 1998. 1997 rather, we started. That was the first time we've ever climbed it, and this will be the 7th time they've gone up it. But these 4 boys are seeing their lead crumble now. It's down to 7 minutes. Not quite as sharp on the climb as the drivers behind, but the weather a lot kinder just now. Not so much sun, but it's the wind doesn't look to be as strong as it was down at Bruges.
At least it's not wet, because that's one thing these bike riders really do hate at this early part of the season, because if it rains in conditions like this, it is absolutely glacial. Interesting thing about this climb is once you get to the summit and you take a left-hand turn, you turn into a road called the Ronde van Vandenbroucke, Tour of Flanders Street. Take a left turn, then drop away, and they're around about 500 meters from the summit of the old Quaremont, but they have to drop off this hill where we are just now, go through the town in the bottom, and then set themselves up for the old Quaremont. These guys will survive to the old Quaremont, but I would think by the time they get to the top there, their advantage is not going to be very much more than the 3-minute mark.
Well, they've been halved. The lead has been halved now from what they had a couple of hours ago. Inside 7 minutes now. The race themselves, it's a bit of an in-battle back there. They're not really chasing these 4 down. They'll come automatically. It's a battle between the men who want a hold position at the front of the peloton when they're on these very narrow roads, because a puncture, a crash, a mass pile-up, and you could be on the defensive for quite a few kilometres.
Bit fishy there, isn't it? Seeing Van der Kooi on the back?
Yes. Yeah, stop carping on. Right. 4 riders clear for most of the race today, and we're into the last 55 miles. Thomas Leyser, who's quite a good friend of ours actually. Thomas, he's been around a long time. We've seen him race a long amateur career before he turned pro. Since he's become a pro, he's become a road rider. He was basically a track rider. Very good time trialist, as he's proving today, I suppose, one way and another. But it's good to see somebody from Team Coast now getting themselves in front of the television cameras, because their season has not been good. They were suspended before they even started because some riders hadn't been paid, money hadn't been lodged, etc. Ulrich still can't race for them because his money has not been lodged as a guarantee, and I'm very doubtful, in fact, if Jan will finish up racing for this team. Gone last weekend was the man who was expected to do wonders for them, Alex Zülle. He's now gone over to Phonak, and that'll be the first time indeed that Alex ever ridden on a Swiss team. And he's full of confidence too. He's got great morale, but he's left behind a team with very poor morale.
In fact, a lot of the riders very upset by the movement there of Alex Zülle, because he was almost the captain on the road, wasn't he? He was the man who kept the team together, gave them direction. You can see the acceleration here, this group splitting somewhat. Jackie Durand going off the back here. It's the 2 Germans opening up the advantage, and Van der Kooi going off the back of the group here with Jackie Durand. I would think they will still manage to survive and accelerate. Durand is a very experienced professional bike rider and realizes that as that climb got very steep towards the summit, he could just knock off a little bit, recuperate somewhat and accelerate as we go back now into the province of Eastern Flanders.
Well, there's the gap, 2 on 2. The Germans versus the rest. As Leyser and Rick, they've also raced as amateurs on the same team. And Michael Rick isn't a bad climber. He's not a man we think of as being a tough mountain climber. He is a big rider. But I remember winning a stage of the old Tour of South Africa, right up in the north of the country, where they are serious mountain passes. And he had a bad time early on, and he crossed the gap after a flat tyre, caught the leaders on a finishing climb in a town called Graaskop, and he actually won the stage at the top of the mountain. There's a very good pancake house up there as well, Paul, should you ever find yourself in the northern part of South Africa.
Well, it's a long way from the eastern part of Africa, but
you
never know. If I get a long bike ride in one day, I might be able to get down there. Very sensible tactical move there, Phil, I think, by the two Germans, realizing still with 86 kilometers to go, they didn't want to clear off on their own and try and build up an advantage on the two chasers. The most important thing in a long raid like this is to keep as many numbers as possible together, because even though Jackie Durand had a hard time on the Kanak De Burgh there, once it levels out, a guy like him has got such a big engine that he can contribute to the success of the breakaway. This is the front end of the main field right now. They are just beginning the Kanak De Burgh, and it's still Rabobank. Mark Wouters moving himself up into second position there. You can be sure that Oscar Freire is not too far away. Look at Bettini. Excuse me, boys, coming by. He wants to ride near the front end of the main field. You see,
the ditch.
Everybody realizes how important it is on these kind of events to ride in the first 15, 20 places. A very nervous bike race like this, you're on the brakes for almost the whole day, and it's in races like this that in the past some riders have managed to wear out a complete set of brake blocks.
So Rabobank still there, the World Cup holder, winner Milan-San Remo, has fought his way through. Watch out for the boys on the right, the Français de Jeu. They're not just there to defend for Jackie Durand, because they are on a terrific high this year. They've had a wonderful start to the year. They won a place in the Tour de France. I think it's almost automatic now. And there is one good British rider who's on terrific morale at the moment, Bradley Wiggins, riding in this event here. And it wouldn't surprise me if Brad gets himself a good result. They have a good sprinter in Baden Cook. Should he get to the finish, he could handle himself better than most in the sprint finish.
He's certainly good at his second attempt here at Flanders, and he actually said to me before the start this morning, Phil, that he felt it was so important having started the bike race last year, because he learned an awful lot about where to be, how to position himself, and of course Belgium very close to his heart, because he spent a lot of his early years here in this part of the world. Quick step now for Phil. I see starting to make more of a move to the front, more of a presence as we get closer to the old Quaremont. Frank Vandenbroucke in the third or fourth line of riders there with a little goatee beard. You can see just in the middle of the screen. Interesting to see Fassa Bortolo moving one or two riders to the front. I'm surprised to see Micheli Bartoli taking part in the bike race here, because he's had a very difficult start to the season, and good to see that former winner also back in the saddle and riding comfortably. Bettini there in the white jersey, winner of the World Cup last year and leader. What a great bike rider, what a great 2 years he's had.
Well, he had, and of course Bartoli was at one stage his mentor. He was the first man he telephoned when he won his first Liège-Bastogne-Liège to tell him he'd won. His life at the back here now. This is Paolini here. They've got the nice little block on. The Rabobank boys are controlling this race just now to their own speed on the climb. As Luca Paolini, well, he's got in front, but he's got a flat tyre.
Well, he's obviously got that information back to the team management there, and good man. He was the man who really set the win up for Paolo Bettini earlier in the season in Milano-San Remo. And Bettini has said about that afterwards, he said, well, basically he did for me what I did for Micheli Bartoli for many years, so watch out for him when it's his turn to come round and ride at the front end of the main field.
Well, he just took something out of his front wheel there. Third in Milan-San Remo, gone back in the pack.
Well, this is why you should not ride at the back end of the main field in the Tour of Flanders. Well, that's why it's such a big battle to ride up at the front. And again, it's González de Galdeano. Not very much fun here, is he?
And Tom Stremic from the Lambau Credit is the rider on the right in the red. But they're back in the fray here. Although once they get over the top of one of these next few hills, they won't get back, because they'll find that the front group of 20-30 riders should be on the way. I think we just saw Julian Dean at the back there. Rides for CSC now, was with US Postal, and comes up with the odd good result. He's a very fast finisher. Bettini riding a brilliant race at the moment. The way he's come back to the front of the pack when it matters shows a man with tremendous confidence. Number 51, good number to have on as well. And sitting off to the left there, Bernard Eistel is the FDJ rider.
Well, it's amazing how comfortable Paolo Bettini looks there, Phil. In the second row, he's out of the saddle, looking very comfortable, dancing on the pedals right now. I'm still impressed by the numbers at the front end of Rabobank. González de Galdeano, 215 there, again in difficulty. But this is probably going to be one of the last times there's such a dramatic compression of riders at the back end of the main field, because next up is going to be the Old Quaremont. Look at this, having to stop at the side of the road. Not seen this in the Tour of Flanders for some time.
This is Julian Dean, number 3 on the right. Well, anybody who's raced in Belgium has been in this position in these classic bike races, whether they're amateur or professional, because this happens in every race that goes onto these narrow roads. The strong men stay at the front and they hold their positions on the build-up to the climbs, because they know what's going to happen on the climbs. 5:56 is the gap, 83 kilometers to go, just over 50 miles. And still Rabobank have the advantage. Here's a flashback. Julian Dean is off to the right of our picture, number 3 there. 126 is Tom Stremisch.
And this is why you have to ride at the front. Look at this acceleration now coming from Rabobank. They had an easier climb than the guys at the back, because they were able to control the tempo and set the pace that they wanted to. This is the Ronde van Vlaanderenstraat that they're turning onto right now. They'll drop off the top here of the town, the climb of Kruisbergen, down into the village below, around about 5 kilometers, and they will start the ascent of the Oude Quaremont. The acceleration there, you see how all of a sudden how the main field has been put into difficulty, and the reason they're doing this right now is to make sure that anybody who's lost any time on the Kanak De Burgh there doesn't have an easy ride to the front end of the main field for the Old Quaremont.
Well, as we come up towards the Old Quaremont, I think we'll see this breakaway split here. If the two Germans show the same strength, because this is a lot longer at 2.2 kilometers. As you can see, it goes up 91 meters above sea level. This is given 4 stars. Average gradient just over 4%. Steepest of 13. In fact, this climb roll has been in every Tour of Flanders since 1974. An old favourite. We even train over it ourselves in the one day off that we get in the week.
Yeah, well, I don't think I'll be training over it this year, Phil. In fact, I don't think I'm going to be on a bike for a couple of months. But it certainly is a very important part of many of the major bike races in this part of Belgium. You can see there just a quick indication, 1,500 meters of cobblestones. They're onto the cobblestones here right now. It's a climb that is used by Kuurne, Brussels, Kuurne, Het Volk, Tour of Flanders. All the big bike races come here, and it is to me the first strategic point. This first part of the climb that we're looking at right now is the steepest part of the whole climb at around about 11%. But what I've always found is the hardest part of this climb is the long false flat afterwards of around about 1.5 kilometers. And look at the acceleration there. Thomas Liese dancing out of the pedals. Jackie Durand looking for a bit of respite on the small smooth section there, but the main field will be coming up here in about 6 minutes and 9 seconds time.
Well, Jackie tackled this climb back in 1992 when he was the last Frenchman to win this race, so he knows what it's all about. But the crowd weren't so orderly in those days, because they put barriers down these climbs now to try and stop them narrowing the road down. So we go up towards the top, Cafe on the right, but straight on for the riders. And well, the two Germans, Rich and Liese, are going clear again. They might get a gap long enough to push on this time, as it's a little bit easier just now. Well, you wouldn't think so.
Well, they're coming to the real tough part of the course right now, because once they survive over the summit here of the Oude Quaremont, which I am absolutely certain they will do right now, they've got the Paterberg, the Koppenberg, the new Koppenberg, which was brought back into the bike race last year, and then the first of 3 brand new climbs that have been put into the Tour of Flanders this year, the Steenbeekdries, which although only 700 meters in length, is a very steep and nasty climb. These two guys were put into difficulty before, and judging by the gap starting to appear, Phil, they may have a more difficult time reintegrating the front end of the bike race. This is the panic at the back end now, everybody battling. Bettini's had a problem, and that is Bettini, and what a blow, Phil. Look at this. Bettini has a front wheel puncture. He doesn't want the wheel from the neutral surface. He wants the car of his own team to put the wheel in there, and that's going to give him a hard ride now to try and get back up right before the Old Quaremont.
Well, that's the look at the draw. He was in such a good position. His hand is up as he makes the right-hand turn. Now he's got to get up to the Quaremont, and that's his best chance. But what he's going to find there, Paul, is an awful lot of riders stopping on that climb. It's going to be a tough return now for Bettini. Now, we believe he wasn't the man for the race to win for the team. We think that's Johan Museeuw. Bettini was going to be the sort of super domestique, but that is a very strong man off the front of this bunch.
And you did notice that none of the teams stop back for him right now, because this is a very critical part of the bike race. We're just coming up to the Old Quaremont. You can see the accelerations. Everybody's looking for their teammates right now, trying to move forward. That's Vandenbroucke in about third position right now. You can tell the style, the way the top end of his body is just moving along, trying to keep himself right at the front end of the main field. Cofidis accelerating down the outside. That was Philippe Gaumont. This is Ivanov on the front right now, looking for his man Ivan Basso.
Ooh, and there's a lot of trouble here.
Oh, they're taking risks.
Just about held on. I thought he was going there.
It's Joe Plancart going around that corner. He knows how to get himself into a good position. It's going to be very difficult now, Phil. We're actually in the first kilometres of the Old Quaremont. This is the tarmac section that wiggles across the roads, and this is the part where it's going to be so difficult now for Paolo Bettini to move forward, because as you can see, there are about 4 bike riders across the width of the road. Look at Plancart going round there. Oh, and that one year they're going to have to take that pylon out of the way, because in fact there was a crash there. I think it was Cipollini went down just in the corner.
There's O'Grady feeling his way through. He's been stopped. You're right, somebody went down. It was a Rabobank, I think. There's still somebody down there. But he's out of sight of our helicopter, so we can't help you as to who it was at the moment anyway. But they've got round it, dodgily so, at 5 minutes 4 seconds to the 4 leaders, who are now 2 by 2. And
Cipollini moving up on the right-hand side.
Indicating to me he's really on form today. He's riding this race very cleverly indeed. Not hitting the front, but always in the right place when he knows it matters.
Well, that's the important thing. And one man we haven't seen yet is Johan Museo, but in recent past that's the way he's ridden the Tour of Flanders. He'll be in there somewhere in the first 15 to 20 places waiting. The other man that I haven't seen too much of right now, and I'm absolutely certain is still there, is of course Peter van Petegem. There are a few Lotto Domo team riders there, so obviously he's not too far. Let's have another look at this. Oof,
that's when I thought Plancart had gone. His back wheel chipped the corner, and that's where the rider from Lampere went down. Still, here we are now, the peloton. We can't get to the back just now to find out what's happening to Bettini. Rest assured he'll be trying to rejoin. Looks like the air balloons collapsed there. Not a good moment for that either, as we come on to the Old Quaremont.
Well, Peter van Petegem was right in there. I got a quick sign of him in about 5th or 6th position in the middle. You can see now this is a bit of a problem. This is the problem that's going to be for Paolo Bettini. There he is on the right-hand side. He's just come back with a group of riders. Very unfortunate for him. He's in about 75th position right now, so he's going to have to pick his way round. Once the race starts to accelerate and there starts to appear the gaps in the main field, he's going to have to jump round groups of riders to get himself into this bike race. Plancart has done a very good job. Big risks, but it's going to pay off for him because he doesn't have to struggle at the back end of this group.
I think this is Wilfred Kretskins here on the front as well for Quick Step, who is the workhorse at this stage of the race for them, as he's doing a very nice job of riding these cobblestones on what is the steepest section here as they come up to the barriers, which will bring them up into the town. And he's got nice tempo there, but imagine now if you were Paolo Bettini the problems you've got, because the riders behind won't be as smooth as this one. They'll be struggling, the road will be totally blocked, and his rhythm will be completely disrupted. There's a long chase in store now for Bettini if he's going to come back up to the leaders here as they come up through the square. Now this is what I'm talking about at the back of the race. That's Jord Ludwig, who is in trouble for Seiko just there, as they now continue at the front with good tempo riding, but it all looks too good at the front. It's at the back now where the race starts to get itself into deep water. I think this is Wilfred Kretskins then of Quick Step, who's leading the tempo and keeping a very good tempo indeed on the climb. The cobbles don't desist till you get to the top here of the Old Quaremont, and it's good, narrow, but fast roads will take us towards the Peterberg.
Well, this is a good move here by Quick Step, and they will, I think, probably be just setting a false tempo right now, because they will hope that their man Paolo Bettini will be able to pick his way round one or two of the weaker riders at this point. They're just going past the little cafe halfway up. Van Petegem, you can see in the dark glasses in the red and white jersey there, moving up into about 6th position. In front of him, there's a Telecom rider. I wouldn't be surprised if that wasn't Stefan Weissermann. In fact, Weissermann a bit further back there in about 8th or 9th, looking very comfortable. He loves these kind of bike races. This race and next week the Paris-Roubaix, which is coming up, are the races where he really does shine. Eric Zabel also very close to the front. There is Cipollini in about 20th position. There is Danilo Hondo, the champion of Germany, also moving forward right now.
And there wasn't Paolo Bettini, because we didn't stay long enough there. That was a shot from our helicopter, so when the picture sort of goes out of focus, it's actually the exhaust fumes of the helicopter itself doing that. And that's the best way to get the pictures right now on these narrow roads. Good fast riding being done at the front here. Lotto have got their man up there, Peter van Petegem. There's Eric Zabel. There's still some good guys here, and trouble at the back here now, because this is Kretskins here. And now I'm not so sure it was Kretskins at the front then. So Kretskins now in trouble and looking to give a teammate a wheel there.
Well, that would be one of the team leaders. I didn't catch it. It was so quick. It could have been Boonen who had gone down there with a problem. Let's just have a quick look and see exactly who it was. 53 is Kretskins. He seemed to be taking his wheel out to give to a teammate who was on the other side of the road.
Yeah, well, it is in fact David Bramati. Now, it's a strange swap that, because Bramati is a workhorse, not a leader.
Well, the order will have been given by the team in the early part of the day to look after certain riders, and maybe the fact is that Bramati is going very well right now.
Well, this can only be Luca Paolini now, setting the tempo on the front, because he's the only one left. We know Bettini's whereabouts. It's not Tom Boonen, and we know that it's not Servais Knaven or Frank Vandenbroucke, or indeed Johan Museeuw yet.
Well, I saw Frank Vandenbroucke riding in about 10th or 12th position, so he's actually made a very good start here to the Old Quaremont. This climb has actually been lengthened, unfortunately, Phil, since I was racing. They get towards the top and they turn off towards the right, and it's put an extra section of around about 300 or 400 meters of cobblestones. They're back onto the main road now, down towards Ronse, and all of these team helpers will look back as we go to the leading group of 4, and they're already on the Patersburg.
Yes, and they're all back together too, so once more they've rejoined just in time for a 4-star 1 in 5 ascent to the Paterberg. And this climb also only short, 350 meters, just a little stab on the legs, this one. But what a stab this is, because it is extremely steep, because it's so short. And this is now hurt Vincent van der Kooi. I think this time he might well be going off the back, but there's plenty of people to give him a pat on the back as he makes his way up. He's been in the lead now for a long time. You see, you don't have to be a star to attract the encouragement of the people of Flanders.
And it is so difficult to ride a climb like this at 20% on the cobblestones out of the saddle. You watch the big guys when they come a little bit later on, the Ludo Dirksens, the Johan Museeuws, they will ride this climb sitting down. Well, it's a pat on the back on the Paterberg here for Van der Kooi, but he's going to have a hard time staying in contact with this group for very much longer.
Well, he's got the wily old Jackie Durand just ahead of him. Inside 5 minutes the gap now, and the climbs really have only just begun. Onto the little bit of concrete slabs, which is famous around Belgium. When you race here and you come off the cobblestones, though, they feel beautiful. Now, is this Celestino having a little dig at the front for Seiko? That's where he's made the move.
The reason is because Paolini is looking over his shoulder there to see, and in fact, looking at the size of the group there, Phil, that is a very large group for the summit of the Olde Quaremont. They're off the main road right now, dropping down to their climb, the Paterberg. And it's so difficult right now over the next few kilometers, because they go from the Paterberg to the Koppenberg to the Steenberg Dries, the new climb that I was talking about just a little bit earlier. But a lot of riders, there are 3 new climbs in Tour of Flanders this year. A lot of riders very worried about this new climb, the climb of Forest. It's around about 1 kilometer in length, but it's very steep indeed. 75 kilometers to go right now, and it's a very large group, bearing in mind that we've already gone over the Old Quaremont.
A lot of tenacious bike riders today, because it was difficult to pin down a real hot favourite, exception being Museeuw, of course, at the start today. You ask anybody who was going to win, and we got a different set of names, apart from Johan. But Johan has either put the word out he's sick, or maybe he was sick all week. Nobody actually knows the truth. The riders themselves, one said to Paul Sherwin here, we don't read the press because I don't think they trust Johan Museeuw.
Well, a lot of people thinking that maybe the problems surrounding the Quick-Step team were not quite as bad as they were made out to be. But Johan Museeuw, Phil, as always at the start, did not give anything at all away. The Belgian commentator at the start line saying to him, well, Johan, are you going to try and get on the podium today? He says, I've been trying to get onto the podium for 16 years. And he's done it 8 times.
Absolutely right.
Great bike rider. He never gives anything away. He's a different character to the character of Mario Cipollini, who is flamboyant and extrovert. Museeuw does it all on the bike with his legs, and does it all in a magnificent style when he's on form.
Yes, a very shy character, but the crowd in Belgium love him. And it looks as though we've got a little regrouping a bit at the front there. as this is the head of the peloton, and this could be an interesting climb for them. It's only short, as we've seen, but they'll need a little bit more space for the bunch on that climb of the Peterberg. They've caught the Seiko rider, put him back in the peloton, but this peloton, I'd like to pull back and just see how many riders there are here. Cipollini is just on the tail of our picture. You can see him as we make the turn. He's still in a very strong position. Looking down though, Stuart O'Grady's made it also for Australia. Onto the 4-star climb now, and all action again, but I haven't seen Paolo Bettini, and I would think he's going to be committed to a chase for a while now.
I think he will have moved up on the main road there to Ronsa, because he was on the back end of the main field, and that may well be why they haven't accelerated. Second position, you recognise that man there? That is Johan Museo.
All of a sudden, just from nowhere.
Just from nowhere. He knows this bike race. Van Petegem there in the pink jersey, Stefan Weissermann. These guys know the right moment to come to the front end of the main peloton.
Well,
Fabio Baldato on the left-hand too. Don't forget, he was second in the Tour of Flanders a few years ago. He's just got himself a win there in one of the stages of the 3 days of La Panna. He likes this bike race too. The big names are coming forward right now. You can see them all on the front end of the main peloton. Baldato here. In fact, he's opened up quite a nice little gap over the rest of the main field. Weissermann moving up into 4th position. Johan Museo, the first time in this bike race we've seen him appearing with 74 kilometers to go. There is Michael Bogard moving forward as well. The big names are all here right now. The leader there of Lotto Domo. There you can see him on the far side. That was
the thing is that
Bettini was there.
Bettini just going around the corner. He's really scurried through the bunch.
This is the back.
Meanwhile, this is the peloton in trouble again. It looks like they're starting a points race on the track now, as they all hold on to the fence before the gun goes. Absolutely amazing, and it's the end of the race for these guys now. So Bettini was wise. He got through on the flatter roads, and now he's going to try and do something, because he's got back up towards the sharp end.
But you see, these guys like Johan Museo, like Paolo Bettini, they knew how important it was to get to the front end of the main field. There was the leader of Team Cofidis, Peter Farazane. He's at the back end of the main field. Not great for him. But the big names were right in the first 10 positions when they came to the foot of this climb here, the Paterberg. Unbelievable.
Yes, Garcia da Costa went through there. Good rider when it's stage races and hills, but different story when the Spaniards come to race here. Never won this race, the Spaniards. Now this is the front of the main chase group at 3:46 now, so again the small climb of the Peterberg has really hurt the breakaway. Now is Bettini still making good progress here. There's a little bit of a group here trying to start a workmanlike fashion now. We're on course for the Koppenberg as the next climb. It'll be hill number 8. And that itself is only 550 meters, but it's another steep climb.
We're about 7 kilometers now away from the Koppenberg, so that gives the men who were in difficulty there on the Paterberg a chance to come up. But you see the danger of riding at the back end of the main field. About 18, 19 riders in that leading group here. This is the group who've just managed to scurry across, having left behind Noch 11. That means now 11 climbs to go. Still 11 climbs in this bike race, and I tell you what, 72 kilometers to go. This race is certainly far from over, but we are now in the most important part of the Tour of Flanders, the Mont, the region of the Mont. The climbs are small climbs that are so repetitive. There's hardly 10 kilometers of racing from now to the finish, Phil, without a cobbled climb in it.
Yes, not a good time to tell these riders at the back. But they're coming across again and hoping they can put themselves in a better position so they don't get dropped on the next climb, because that's the way they think. Those riders who were delayed on the climb now were stopped or walking. You can reckon they'll form a chase bunch, and if there is a little bit of respite, then they will get back on. Otherwise, they'll just ride into the finish, and there are shortcuts through to the finishing line. We often see from our commentary position riders coming in from the Tour a long time before the race arrives.
In fact, just as you speak, I saw a couple of guys going by there, and they obviously were on their way to an early bath.
3:26 at 71 kilometers to go. We've now done 50 kilometers here on air, and we've seen the gap come down from 11:24 to 3:25. We're into the town of Zulzeke. This again is still the man from Quick Step here, Luca Paolini on the front, working well.
4 kilometers now to the Koppenberg. Museo just sitting at the front, just keeping an eye on affairs, letting everyone else set the tempo. That group has swelled somewhat, but it's definitely not the same size as it was a few moments ago as we went over the Eau de Quaremont.
And just look at Museo here, watching everybody, assessing who is here, who's looking good. He's such a crafty rider. Michael Bogart, he's got right on his back wheel there. That, I think, is significant today. Bogart seems to have found some very good form in these last 10 days of the early part of the season. We've got an attack here. Is this Cipollini?
Well, in fact, it mustn't have been Cipollini who went down at the bottom of the Eau de Quaremont, because this is him right now out making a move at the front end of the main field. I would say, Phil, that group, the front end of the main peloton right now has swelled to around about 45 riders, and we're looking, I would say, to 3 kilometers to go before the Koppenberg.
Well, it's an interesting move by Cipollini to try and pedal away from the peloton here, because if he catches up with the 4 leaders, I'll have no strength left to help him, and he's set himself a 70-kilometer ride to the finish. But there is a reaction from the field.
I think the only reason he's doing this is to try and make sure he can get around the corner of the Koppenberg ahead of everybody else, so he doesn't have to battle at the front end of the main field to get up there in nice position. The Koppenberg basically rebuilt over the last couple of years. It's quite a magnificent climb nowadays. Not as difficult it was in the old days, but certainly, again, quite a strategic point in the Tour of Flanders, an area where you have to look at this. Bettini's moved across here. Crafty bike rider. He was in difficult a few moments ago, a flat tyre almost before the start of the Old Quaremont, and riding himself now into a counter-attack.
What terrific form he really has got. I've never seen him ride so well at this time of the year. He's a total workhorse, and there he is, second man in our picture, with Alessio just in front of him.
Dangerous move for Quick Step here, because they're going to put pressure on everybody else. Poor old Johan Museo must be thinking right now, oh, I've got my teammate Bettini off the front. I want to win this bike race, but I can't chase down. But he's such a calm bike rider when it comes to tactics, cold when it comes to making decisions out on the open road. Everybody knows he wants to win this bike race for a 4th time, but he will force everybody else now into a position of difficulty.
Looks like Fabio Balducci may have got himself up here as well. Standing there right on the back is a teammate of Giovanni Lombardi, the lead-out man for Cipollini.
Great bike rider, Lombardi. Not very often excelled in these Northern Classics at all. Getting on the back there, Roberto Petito is the man from Fassa Bortolo. This is a group mainly made up here of Italian riders. A good move just before they get to the early slopes here of the Koppenberg, because they don't have to battle to get round the corner in the first 4 or 5 places.
Fabio Sacchi's the Seiko man. Had a very, very good race in Australia in January. I think they were asking which way to go, though.
They weren't sure, because in fact the reason there was a confusion there right now, because they were looking up the road and they saw a car turn to the right, and that was obviously the press car taking a shortcut, because the press cars are not allowed to go here on the climb of the Koppenberg. The 4 leaders getting themselves back together for the Koppenberg. Now their time gap inside of 3 minutes, 69 kilometers to go. And look at these statistics of the Koppenberg. They're unbelievable. Over 20% at its steepest part. Around about 22, in fact, even though it's only around about 550 meters in length. This is the main field, controlled there by Lotto Domo, and they're the team right now tactically missing out, because Quick Step have 2 men on the attack.
Heading up to the Koppenberg. Here we are now, familiar scenes and memories here of the years gone by, but in fact this was out of the competition for 5 years, reintroduced last year with a new surface on it, and surely this time these boys are going to crack. Thomas Lisa on the left of our picture, Michael Rick, the 2 Germans who have proved the mountaineers over the last 3 mountains, and again they put now Jackie in trouble. Now, you know, a lot of riders won't get up this climb. This climb is so steep, we can expect to see riders in the main field obliged to walk because they won't get a run at the climb. Jackie Duron, number 3 of the 4 men, and hats off to Vincent van der Kooi, because he really has tried to stay with this breakaway.
It's just a horrendous climb, I have to say. I remember when we built up for the Tour of Flanders when I was racing, it was just basic when the plastic soles were introduced and you couldn't actually get up here. We used to buy pieces of leather to stick underneath the shoes, so because we knew we were going to have to walk this climb, and it was serious preparation to make sure everything was right for the Koppenberg in the Tour of Flanders. These guys have got a great chance. They will have used very small gears, probably 39 on the inside and a 25 on the outside, and that's the only time probably in the whole day they will have used that gear. This looks like the counter-attack, which is moving off the front. Paolo Bettini is in this group, and this is a group of 8 riders now starting to move off the front end of the main field. And tactically, I don't think it's a great situation for Lotto Domo, the team of Peter van Petegem, and I would say they're the team who are going to have to take up the pace-making on the front end of this main field, because 2 quick-step riders are in the group, and the man who leads the World Cup, Paolo Bettini, on the front. What a great bike rider.
And already on the Koppenberg. That's how hard it is now. That's how the gap has come down. Bettini on the right of our picture. Other members of the breakaway: Paolini, Lombardi, Petito and Sacchi. There are 5 of the names we've worked out for you. And just look at the strength of Paolo Bettini. This magnificent rider, just a couple of climbs ago, was in the melee of the mass with a front wheel puncture. He's ridden right through the field. Tremendous ability to do that, and then go straight off the front as soon as he made contact.
Well, that really was an excellent move there, and he knows the best way to ride this climb. He's on the right-hand side of the road right now, and he's out of the saddle, which is a very difficult thing to do on this climb. The best way to ride a cobble climb. There is the rest of the group on the front end of it. You can see Seiko in control. I'm absolutely certain not far away from the first 4 or 5 positions in that main field will be Johan Museo, but you can see the leader of the World Cup, Paolo Bettini, the winner of Milano Sanremo, sitting in the saddle, gritting his teeth to just keep that big gear ticking over. This is a serious move here by the Italians, putting a lot of pressure onto the field. Cipollini was the Lampre rider. Let's have a look further down.
All Italians, Paul.
They're nearly all Italians in that group here. Museo is up there in second position. Baldato on the left-hand side. Such a powerful bike rider, Johan Museo. Michel Bogard is the Rabobank rider just on the right-hand side. Big names are theirs. Weseman also to the front end of the main field.
There's huge efforts being done here now with 8 riders going clear. I hope we get some shots at the back to show you the sort of chaos that will be on this climb now, as the crowd cheer up their individual heroes of the day. Just going across the gap too for US Postal is Vyacheslav Yekimov. He's just hanging on in a good position there right now. And on the left of our picture, the white colours there, the world champion, using the barriers, and anything fine right now, Mario Cipollini, but still, this strong man riding well. Stuart O'Grady with the bands of the Australian champion in the centre picture. And just behind there, 145, there's Nico Matan, another man for Flanders, also riding well. But all of these riders still in with a chance here. This is the steep climb, very often one of the decisive climbs here.
A lot of Team Telecom riders there. 161 is Ralph Aldag, a man who's been at the top of the sport for an awful long time, a very good worker. This is the chaos at the top of the climbs here right now, and you can see the huge crowd that have turned out, and they've certainly put in a very serious bit of advertising at the top end of the main field. I've not seen this before at the top of the Koppenberg, but certainly as we look down here, this race is starting to form now with the big names coming forward. That is the counter-attack right now. There are still 4 riders off the front end of the main field by not really very much more than a couple of minutes. But this is a great move by Paolo Bettini, the leader of the World Cup, to get himself into this breakaway move, which is almost completely full of Italians.
8 riders in the breakaway. We're still waiting to pick up 2 names for you at the moment. The man sat at the back, though, is Giovanni Lombardi, and I can't see him doing any work in this breakaway because he is in charge of leading out Mario Cipollini. He's showing a little bit of concern there. This is the leading 2 riders still on their own now, Michael Rick and Thomas Lisa, the 2 German riders, staying together here as they come off onto the smooth roads for a short respite before we head on to one of the new climbs, and I've never seen it, Steenbeck Dries. It's a climb of just 700 meters.
Oh, there's a motorbike gone down as well. This is
well, that's just what you need, blocking the road up now.
This is the reason why the Tour of Flanders kept away from the Koppenberg for so many years, and it's not an easy job. That's one of the neutral vehicles, the neutral motorbikes.
Service. He blocked the whole race here now, and the rider complaining there is David Bramati, again with the wheel trouble. One or two riders explaining to each other. Looks like Robbie Hunter also in trouble. And one of the US Postal boys, is that Efimov? No,
I think it's Max van Heeswijk.
Max van Heeswijk, it looks like him.
And this is the problem here. Van Heeswijk is stuck at the side of the road. He can't get his foot out of the pedal, and it's so difficult. The Koppenberg, if you stop, it's almost impossible to get going again. You see, I don't know how he lost it there, but he's actually blocked the complete road. The motorbike there, and in fact, he nearly took out David Bramati. Bramati, in fact, I think, was almost taken out by the motorbike, and certainly doesn't look very happy, does he?
No, and the motorbike rider there is okay as well. Thank heavens for that, as the two riders on the front now will know nothing about what's happening behind. They would anticipate it, though, because those climbs are so narrow. This is Thomas Lisa, as they're just about getting things underway here. Bramati's got to be out of the hunt now, and so too I think it is Max van Heeswijk. So those two riders, I think, are not going to catch up now with the leaders, because remember the last time we saw them, we've got 2 and 2 up front. We've got 8. Listen to the crowd booing the motorcycles. Well, I'm not so sure it's exactly down to him. He didn't intentionally try to take out Bramati.
And this is one reason, again, Phil, why there is a deviation around the Koppenberg as well. None of the team cars actually go up here either. They turn right at the bottom of the Koppenberg and take a circuit around to rejoin the bike race a little bit later on, because of the fact this climb is so steep. If a car stops there, there is absolutely no way you can get it going again. You have to reverse down to the bottom and start again. This is the second group, the Achtervolkers, the chasing group. There are still the two leaders, followed by the two men who've been left behind from that leading group. And now this group of Italian counter-attackers, and we get a chance here just to see what their advantage is over the main field and who is actually chasing right now. And I think Johan Museo is starting to wonder if the advantage is going to go across to his teammate. That's a big group for the moment, Phil.
Knowing Johan, he won't be panicking yet. He certainly won't do anything to endanger Paolo Bettini, but he won't expect him to stay away, I don't think. Let's have a look here now at the breakaway. Well, not the breakaway, but the head of the field here, and the Team Coast rider there is Torsten Rund, taking them around the corner. Peloton regrouping a little bit here, and quite a nice size still, as we're heading out in search of hill number 9 for the day.
Mario Cipollini comfortably in with the main pack. A lot of his teammates there as well. You can see the zebra strip of Domino Vacanzi. They'll be looking completely and utterly after one man today, who said he felt he was in with a big chance of winning Milan-San Remo this year, Tour of Flanders this year, Mario Cipollini. The line of Flanders flags waving, indicating the wind coming here from the left-hand side. 64 kilometers to go. That's around about 45 miles of racing right now. The whole of the main field trying to ascertain just how they need to respond right now as we rejoin the two leaders, the two German leaders, Lisa and Michael Rich. Michael Rich has been an absolutely superb time trialist in his amateur days, and turning out to be a pretty good attacker right now on the road. This is the new climb, the first of the 3 new climbs in this year's Tour of Flanders, 700 meters in length, climbs up 37 meters, 7%, the Steek Bedendries.
Yes, it's not so far either. It's only given 2 stars, so it's not going to hurt them too much, this one. That is, if you have me in the lead, like these two have for quite a long way now. Lisa looking still very, very cool and collected here. Now, the two riders, I think, are not going to get back this time, because this hill has come just a little bit too quickly on from the Koppenberg, and because of that, I don't think they'll have a chance to regroup, and they'll be heading to their destiny behind, to the chasers. Seem to have lost our little time clock at the moment, so we don't quite know what the lead is, but we'll see for ourselves very shortly now, because after this we go to the Tyenberg and a new climb, La Duds. I think by then we're going to see different riders coming to the fore.
Well, these two riders now, all they can do is just hope that they can keep on to their advantage as much as possible. I would say the next time we do get an official time check, Phil, it's going to be around about 1.5 minutes. There's the car going by. They're saying it's 1.5 minutes to the two chasers and 2.5 minutes to the peloton. But I think we'll find that time check by the time it goes up again will have changed quite dramatically. Because these guys, you could see the visible difference in the speed. On the front there, Bettini very excitedly setting up the pacemaking, and as you saw earlier, Giovanni Lombardi in exactly the same position, sitting on the back of the group. His team orders will be not to contribute to the success of any breakaway at all.
There's Petito, and this rider here is Luca Paolini, who really was one of the men in charge of spearheading this race. And that's one of the rides we hadn't seen before, but that's Enrico Cassani, Paul, who's got in there.
Well, in fact, a teammate last year of Bettini, he was a great bike rider for the Mapei Quick-Step team in their domination of Paris-Roubaix, and he switched across this year. He's a rider who's done very well in these classics, and in fact finished 7th in Paris-Roubaix last year. Great bike rider.
So he's read it well. Balducci is the other rider. I'm looking at him at the moment, Gabrielle Balducci. Now he's a rider who's currently on very good form. Well, it's absolutely amazing, Paul, but I can never recall an all-Italian breakaway like this, but everybody's Italian.
It's quite remarkable. This is Steenbeek-Dries, 7% at the steepest part, but it is rather interesting that it is a completely Italian attack coming off the front end of the main field. In fact, I think a few moments ago I said that Cassani was 7th in Paris-Roubaix. He was 7th in Flanders last year and then 10th in Paris-Roubaix. This is the front end of the main field. And it still looks like Benoit Joachim. He's doing a lot of work, obviously, to try and pull Yaroslav Ekimov back into the main race. 63 kilometers to go. That's for the leading group of riders on the road. Johan Museu not too far away.
This is Fabio Sacchi bringing through on the left now. And there's the gap, 1:52. And I think the second group is possibly going to be the split between the two front runners and the next two, are probably only just in front of this group right now, as it is Balducci setting the pace now. But all Italians: Bettini, Paolini, Lombardi, Petito, Sacchi, Cipollini, Cassani and Balducci is the composition of these 8 riders. Well, at least they'll be able to hold a conversation.
Well, they'll be able to get themselves sorted out. They'll be heading out now towards another very difficult climb. The next climb that will be rearing up into their faces will be the Tyenberg. I think almost as steep as the Paterberg. This is the main field behind. That's Mark Wouters on the front trying to stir it up. Interestingly enough, I said a little bit earlier, I thought that Rabobank were doing too much work early on. There's a big counterattack now of 8 riders going clear off the front, and they've completely missed out on it.
No Rabobanks yet. They've been ridden around and shown how to put in the real move, I think, and Paolo Bettini was one that spearheaded it despite just rejoining the front runners. 1:41 the gap. It's coming down all the time. Just about 39 miles still to run to the finish in Miebecker. Slight uphill finish, but on good road surface. While we've been commentating, we've been entertained to a junior race running round and round our commentary position, but that seems to have finished now, as the crowd are now watching like you on television.
The time gap coming down very quickly now, down to 1:39 with just outside of 60 kilometers to go. That's the main field, and you can see a lot of the service cars haven't yet got back into the bike race because there's a lot of riders getting left behind at the moment, and I'm surprised to see such a large peloton still together after about 120 kilometers of racing.
But still plenty of climbs to make a difference. Here are the 2 German riders now. Thomas Lisa still stepping on the gas here, and it looks like he might have cracked his teammate for the day, Michael Rick, because it looks as though Lisa on the Tyenberg is now hurting Rick. Well, this could go down as one of the best rides Lisa has ever done as a top pro.
Well, the difficult thing here right now is these climbs are so steep. This one is 18% at its steepest part. There's no way you can actually keep a nice steady pace, a comfortable pace. You have to ride as hard as you can just to get your body and your bike up. There's a slight gap between these 2 riders, but I would think once we get over the summit, they will join up together because they need to keep together as close as possible. The time gaps we're getting right now, that 1:22 is to the counter-attack on the road, the group of the 8 Italians, and just 40-odd seconds behind them is the main field with all of the other leaders who, for the moment, have actually been surprised, I think, by that counter-attack of the Italians.
Well, surely they can't let an 8-man Italian attack go. They're going to have to work on it. Remember, the Italians have won this race for the past 2 years. No Belgians won it since, well, Andre Schmil, I suppose, in 2000, but he's a naturalized Belgian. Peter van Petegem might claim it in 1999.
And in fact, I think you're right there, because this is a serious acceleration going off the front here. And we may well be seeing the end of Michael Rick there in second position. That was the second group of the first group of counter-attackers, because caught in the middle somewhere must still be Jackie Durand and Van Kooi. And Cipollini doing a serious job on the front end here. Only 500 meters in length, but these climbs, the repetitive nature of these climbs make it so difficult to find a decent rhythm, and that's what really eats into the energy levels at the end of a day like this. This is the steepest part of the climb right now at 18%.
Just look at the tempo of Cipollini here, and the rest are matching it. And then when you think of the images there of Micheli Bartoli a few moments ago, these boys are absolutely flying up here. This is Balducci again, who's continuing to tempo. He's had a good start to the season. He had a best position 9th in Het Volk, so he likes racing in Belgium. The Italians never used to, but they do now.
A couple of years ago, he got himself a nice place in Ghent-Wevelgem. He finished 10th there. Looks like Matin on the front here. It's difficult to see because there's so much vibration. The main field now, there's Vandenbroucke on the right-hand side. He's trying to get himself to the front. Johan Museeuw on the left. They're allowing everybody else to do all the pacemaking right now. A lot of teams have been caught out, and I think, once again, although the riders will not admit it, there is a certain rivalry between the Quick-Step team and Lotto Domo, who are, again, one of the teams who've missed out.
Yes, and Matin rides for the French Cofidis team, but very, very much a Belgian, and always wants to ride well in his home classic races, and does, as he now sets the tempo here. It's a little bit of a defensive move now, as Frank Vandenbroucke was peering round there to see what was going on up front. These are the 2 riders who must be imminently about to be caught by the 8 Italians. Let's have a little luck. Well, there we are. There's Balducci first across to them, so 2 of the 4 have been caught. As they continue now, Jackie Giron takes a good look at him. Now, is he going to try and stay with these 8 for a little while longer? He's wondering where the rest of the race is, I think. There's the lineup for you coming up on the screen at the moment. Now, is Jackie going to try and get in there? I'm sure Van Cooij will try to survive just a little bit longer. It's unlikely, though, he'll finish the race, I think.
Well, this is a bit chaotic right now because just catching those 2 men has slowed down the impetus of this group. And if you look at the time gap between group number 2 and the peloton, it's actually come down a little bit. And I think if we get onto the longer, straighter sections, the main peloton will start to see. Look at Museeuw there, 2nd position in the blue and white jersey. He is so calm and collected. Come on, boys, I don't really care. He's playing a game right now. It's a tactical game, forcing everybody else to do the pacement. I don't care if my teammates win up the road. I'll just stay here. And that's what I think is his strength, the power of forcing the other riders into believing, as they have done all week, that he's got a bad knee. They have done all week, thought that he's got bronchitis. But this is the Tour of Flanders. He's not going to wait. He wants to win this bike race again.
Well, as a classic rider, I think he's number 1 in 2 departments. He's the best tactician, and he's the finest man over the cobblestones, because he can ride them better than anybody. And he's got this race under control just now. He knows that Bettini is out in front as well, which is not what the peloton thought. They expected Bettini to be the workhorse for Johan Museeuw. 1:17, the spread on the field now. Seiko at the front, but they have a man away, don't forget, so they're not going to react to this move.
Somebody's going to have to organise. That time gap between the 2 groups, the 2 main groups of the bike race, was down to just 30 seconds a few moments ago. Now, if somebody doesn't take responsibility, Phil, at the front end of the main field here, they're going to have a very hard time because the gap will start to increase. I think that's Micheli Bartoli close to the front. He's obviously working for the team today because he's coming back from a very difficult start to the season where we saw him go down and have a very serious injury. This is the 8-man chase group, just 36 seconds behind the leading 2 Germans. And right now, the fact that the main field is shut down and there's no organised chase, it's starting to stretch out again from the 8 to the peloton.
Markadal, and it was Bartoli on the front for the Fassa Bortolo. Changed the colours a little bit this year, as we now have won the few descents in this race. Most of the roads seem to be flatter uphill. 38 seconds to the 2nd group. That's the group we're looking at here. Again, the motorbikes running a bit close there on the right-hand bend, causing the rider there to brake pretty sharply.
This is actually not looking very good for the main peloton. There's obviously a lot of tactical manoeuvring going on there in the main group behind, because these guys, the group of 8 we're looking at right now, are not riding full on, yet they are extending their advantage. And look at the gap now between group number 2 and the main peloton. It's almost a minute as we go over here, the Cassé and the cobblestones at Etikove.
Well, you know, at 58 kilometres to go, I would get concerned a little bit by this breakaway, especially when the World Cup holder and the winner of the first World Cup race of the season is in it. Bettini, Cipollini looking very sharp. It was his fine tempo riding on the Koppenberg which has caused this to happen. Balducci is also riding extremely well, especially in this part of Europe right now. And they must be a little surprised they've got such a gap. You'd think we were commentating on a national race in Italy rather than the famed Tour of Flanders just at the moment. Jackie Duron still hanging on the back along with Vincent van der Kooi. That's his face for you. I'm not surprised it's hurting him right now, but at least they've got a free lift. They don't have to work anymore. Nobody will shout at them for sitting at the back. They've had a brilliant day so far. They are just closing in, but on these sort of roads, the two Germans are more or less holding their advantage at 25 seconds. So we'll wait for the next climb to start shutting it down.
Well, the next climb is again one of the new climbs in the Tour of Flanders, the first time ever. La Deurse, 13%, around about a kilometre in climbing, and it may well be goodbye to the two different nationalities in this group of 10 riders. Duron there in the white jersey for France and La Française des Jeux, and Van der Kooi there, number 227 for the Bank Lotteria, because I think this is quite a steep and nasty little climb, and by the summit I think this 8-man counter-attack will be the 8-man of leaders over the bike race here at the Tour of Flanders. There are the two leaders, just surviving for the moment. The two Germans have got back together, but as you can see, it's just basically now a question of survival, because their advantage is just 18 seconds.
And in fact, the peloton right now are closing in as well at 1:12, so this could all be together again by the time we get to the Boigneberg, which is climb number 12 and another new one. Although we have climbed it before in 1978, the only time in fact we've ever climbed the next climb, and I can't remember at all what it's like. But we're looking here now at riders just trying to split the field. This has been a very good race, but there's a lot of strong men around. Giovanni Lombardi still last man, collecting the tickets, waiting for the arrival of his world champion captain. He won't help this escape at all.
No, his job today really is to think about the chances of Mario Cipollini, and if there is a large group towards the end, then Cipollini would love to sprint up this finishing straight with the World Championships jersey. Van der Kooi has gone off the back pretty dramatically, and so has Jackie Duron. So we're now looking at the 8 Italians who are the counter-attack, but they're not very far, Phil, off the tail wheels of the two German riders who were part of the leading group of 4 which have dominated this race since the early part of this afternoon.
Yes, so at 60 kilometres to go, they picked up the two Frenchmen, or the Frenchman and the Dutchman, and now as they come up towards the top here of La Deurse, I think we're going to start finding out the other riders are right there. The peloton, not surprisingly, Lotto are starting to find out in the hope that they can get Peter van Petegem back into the action. So teams are realising now that Johan Museeuw has played a card. 2 of his teammates are up the road, 1st and 3rd in Milan-San Remo, and now they've got to take Museeuw to them, and that's good tactics.
Brilliant tactics. I have to think that Patrick Lefevre, who is sitting in the team car, he doesn't like to get involved too much in bike races this year, these days, because one year, a couple of years ago, after the Paris-Roubaix, he had a serious heart problem. He was put under so much stress waiting for Johan Museeuw to win the race once more that he decided he didn't want to be the overall team manager out on the road anymore. But he certainly was in the car this morning as they pulled away. The car piloted by Wilfred Peters, the former henchman of Johan Museeuw, who nice again there, Phil, sitting in 3rd position, just orchestrating affairs. It's all actually going very much to his advantage for the moment.
It's absolutely brilliant just now for them. As we continue our climb of La Deurse here, the banner indicating the top. Still no sign of the two Germans, but they're not very far in front here now. Oh, they're here. There is Michael Rick, where we didn't see the catch. We were looking at the peloton. But it looks like now we are 10 riders over the top of La Deurse, and the peloton chasing.
Mark Wouters chasing former champion of Belgium, former stage winner of the Tour de France, on his own turf as well, getting the victory up in Antwerpen. But you can see now the two teams, the big teams who have missed out on this breakaway. Lotto Domo coming to the front with Rabobank, but there are not as many of the white, red, bright orange and blue jerseys on the front for Rabobank. I can see Michael Bogard in about 10th position. Nico Martin is there as well, and You can see the crowds here. The crowds charge around Belgium to see this bike race, and there's a sort of an unofficial attempt to see the bike race as many times as possible. And some people, believe it or not, believe that they can see this race on 12 separate occasions, so pretty dramatic.
Well, that was Cassani who started a move there. Oh, what's happened here now as the crowd changed position? Yes, they've seen the leaders. They're not worried about the peloton. It's all action for the cars and to get to next position. This is Michael Rick. Once in the lead, now hanging on to the back. I haven't spotted Thomas Llyich yet, but we must presume that they were caught together. But maybe Llyich has gone clear on his own, Paul, and our cameras aren't with him yet because he was ahead of Rick at the time.
Yes, well, he did drop him on that last climb there. We're now on the Eichenbergstraat that these riders are cruising along, and they're making their way across to the next climb of the day, the Bonjeberg, which, as you said, they went over in 1978, and I certainly don't remember that climb at all. It's a long time. In fact, that was the first year that I turned professional. I think, Phil, they may well have picked up Lisa as well, but look at this, the acceleration here. The whole race is coming back together right now. 20 seconds between probably Lisa and the next group, and then just a further 14 seconds back to the front end of the main field, who have accelerated.
So Lisa's still hanging on. We'll pick him up shortly though at 20 seconds, and the peloton closing. The Bonjeberg is just 2 kilometers in front, and that will be climb number 12 of 19. There's an awful lot of opportunity yet to change the pattern of this Tour of Flanders, but the first tactical victory has already gone to the Quick Step team. The World Cup leader is in front, and Johan Museo is watching his strong rivals have to chase. Michael Rick sitting at the back now, still riding very, very well. This is Balducci of the Vina Calderola team, Sidemek, who's sitting at the back as well. And just alongside him there, Cassani.
And there's the main field with Johan Museo, Steven Weseman, all of the other men, not very far behind. Good move by this man here, though, 51. Paolo Bettini, winner of Milan-San Remo, leader of the World Cup, winner of the World Cup as well. He certainly put a lot of pressure. I would think men like Peter van Petegem would have been very worried about the fact that Paolo Bettini there had got himself into a counter-attack surrounded by Italians.
Everybody having to come through on those motorbikes because the peloton is now closing very, very quickly indeed.
In fact, I think it's closed.
I say it, it's over. And just look at them. It's a very long peloton who's hooked up with those 9 leaders. We still think that Thomas Llyich is just in front. That's 19 seconds for advantage for him. And we'll probably pick him up again now that we've shut down the peloton to one big chasing group. And it still is a big group as we now are in search of Forest, which is a climb we haven't seen, but it was filling up all the pages of the newspaper. In fact, the Bonjeberg, I beg your pardon, the Bonjeberg is next, and then we've got the climb of the Forest, which has been filling up all of the newspapers this week in Belgium, and the riders have wisely been out and checked it out. 15 seconds, here he is, Thomas Llyich, doing one of the rides of his life today in the Tour of Flanders, but I'm afraid it won't be a winning one. At 14 seconds, he might be quite surprised when he finds just how many riders come around him.
I think he will have expected there's a problem here. This is Cipollini. Now, that car right in front there is the race director's car. There is the rest of the group riding away. I can't see any problem with Mario Cipollini here right now. And if there was a problem with his machine, there would be a whole host of Domino Vacanze riders around him. He's cruising along right now, looking over his shoulder, and I wonder what this is all about.
No, I can't help you there, Paul. I wasn't so sure he wasn't going to stop. He might have been lining up for the corner. What we'll tell you if we find out. This is now Thomas Llyich making his attempt at the Bonjeberg. Don't look over your shoulder though, Thomas, because you're going to see the men who are chasing. 6% at the steepest point, an average of 5%, and the race referees now getting twitchy. They want everybody round Thomas Llyich. Here come the cavalry again now, as they're waiting for somebody to make a move. Bettini still on the front, still riding strongly, but we don't know now what has happened to Mario Cipollini. He was just off the tail of this group, and our camera's not going to go and show us, so we'll have to just sweat on that one for a moment. Here's Thomas Llyich as he continues his ascent of the Bonjeberg. It's a climb of 1 kilometer, and that could be a kilometer too far.
It certainly could be. You see the race referees in Belgium, they have a lot of referees on the motorbike. That man standing up here right now is one of the race referees, looking back to see what the time gap is, and he will then, if he feels that they're starting to come up too quickly, move anybody out of that gap to try and make sure that there is no falsification of the race. Petegem, you can just see peeping through on the right-hand side there. He too has been very attentive over these last few kilometres. Still Paolini close to the front. This is Mark Wouters, the Rabobank rider, on the right-hand side. Benoit Joachim doing good there. You see Johan Museo moving forward in the yellow crash helmet with the lion on the front.
Benoit Joachim going to have a little dig here, quickly marshalled by Johan Museo. Now that should cause a flurry of activity. Balducci picks it up pretty quickly too. You see Museo just watching but not interested to go, and now a counter-attack. Is this Wouters again? Now, if this is a nice split, I think Johan won't ignore that one. He knows the possibilities from Mark Wouters, who took the yellow jersey a couple of years ago in the Tour de France when it arrived in Antwerp. And all of a sudden, 5 men have a lead, 3 coming across.
Well, that was a strange acceleration there by Wouters, I have to say, because he'd done an awful lot of work on the front end of the main field. He just saw the opportunity and thought, well, let's have a go and see what happens. But Museo was on it immediately. Oh, that was very close.
So a touch of wheels, and Balducci giving a mouthful there to Cassani, but Cassani said, I didn't do anything, it hit my back wheel. Let's have another look at that. There he goes, and he's come across. In fact, he was looking the wrong way. It's a classic error.
A lot of
it's
bike
not
riders.
Really the fault of Cassani. It was just one of those things.
A lot of bike riders do that. I remember one man who used to do it a lot was Phil Anderson. I always wondered if he was going to fall off, and he fell off a number of times doing just that. Johan Museo, Phil, see how attentive he is right now. I can't quite figure out what the move is coming from Mark Wouters. He's done a lot of work right now. Looking down the line there, I actually can't see his teammate Michael Bogert. He may well have disappeared. They're over the top now of the Bonneberg.
Here comes the counter-attacks now, though, and it looks as though people are getting a little bit excited here.
This is Frédéric Guédon, a big surprise winner a couple of years ago of Paris-Roubaix. He's been looking for the move. They're going through the town of Mater just now, and in a few moments' time they'll have a nasty section of cobblestones to go over. 51 kilometers to go, but everybody now must start to be just that little bit more attentive. A good move here by the Vinny Candelero team, putting one of their men across here. And
again.
He's been very attentive as well, Phil, looking for the moves here right now. He's in the 8-man group that counter-attacked just a little bit earlier on. The man in second position in the white jersey there is Guédon. He's looked around ever since he was the surprise winner of Paris-Roubaix to try and confirm that win, but never really managed to come up with the goods.
No, on the left the leader, on the right the chasers, and still a big group here, and they're not far from the catch now. It's almost over at 50 kilometers from the finish here. Mark Wouters drives on, trying to catch on the back wheel there of Frédéric Guédon, who is seemingly riding like a man inspired here, as is the team Française des Jeux, who wants a little bit more action from the rest.
Museo, I think, just happy to stay at the front end of the main field. His favourite climbs are the Berendries and Ten Bosch. That's where I would think he will try and wait to think about some kind of move. And a move coming off the front here from Psycho. And this is always dangerous when you've had a scurry of attacks and then all of a sudden people sit up.
Well, this is Dario Pieri now. There's a man who could be seen as a likely winner of this race. He was on quite a few people's lips this morning at the start as a possible winner of the race. He's got good form after his first World Cup race in Milan-San Remo, finished 5th in that. So he's got the confidence to go the distance. And let's not forget either, Paul, that 3 years ago I think he was second in this race.
He certainly was. He's a man who many people thought would be a dark horse as an outsider, but to let him go away at 50 kilometers to go is rather a strange move, and on your own like that is a very difficult thing to do in a race here like the Tour of Flanders. Johan Museo went away for a very long attack a couple of years ago, but look at the climbs left to go. Forest, Steenberg, Leiberg, Berendries, Ten Bosch, the Mur de Grammont, of course, and the final climb, the one that strikes fear in everybody's heart, is the Bosberg. And there's Andrea Taffy, the first time we've seen him today.
Oh, the defending champion is still very much in the fray. He caught up then after his bad start this morning. A bike change, he had problems with his cleats. He changed his bike way back from the start line, and somebody told him the race had gone. He says, it's a long way, we'll have a chance yet. And he went back into the race at the end of the neutralised section. He caught up.
This is Santa Maria Horbeck, just 49 kilometres to go. And they're in between the two climbs now of Bonjeberg and Forest, and all of these riders, I think, waiting just to see exactly how difficult this climb is going to be, because it's fine going out and looking at it. It's okay to go and ride it in training, but actually to attack it under race conditions is completely and utterly different. And I tell you what, Phil, this guy is doing a great job. I really don't know how he survived. There is the main field. He's not had very much more than 15 or 20 seconds, but looking back there at Dario Pieri, you can see him coming across the gap, but he hasn't really opened up much of an advantage over the main field. So a bit of a waste of energy, that move right now.
Well, Thomas is a very good track rider. He's a good time trialist. He was going to attack the world hour record, which he never did with success, but he is a rider who has a lot of speed in those legs, even if he has had the majority of the day out front. Help is at hand. Dario Pieri is going to be the first to reach him at 48 kilometres to ride, exactly 30 miles to go. Lisa now joined by Pieri.
This is a great move. He's a good bike rider. In fact, he's no stranger to success in Belgium, because last year he won the Grand Prix E3 as well. He's a good team man for Team Saeco. He did a lot of work a couple of years ago looking after Mario Cipollini, but I think his biggest performance was when he did finish second in that Tour of Flanders. Now this is indicating a two-man lead group, but I think for Thomas Lisa it'll be just a question of trying to hang on to the coattails of Dario Pieri for as long as possible, and I think he will have probably, Phil, a very difficult time when they come up to the climb of Forest. But look at this speed as they drop off one of the small climbs here, 67 kilometers an hour, and they're setting themselves up now for Forest. And I think we will see a serious acceleration at the front end of the main field to try and reduce the numbers from what is still a 45-50 man group down to a much more manageable size of around about 20.
Well, Museo won't attack till he gets to one of the small climbs, and he'll leave it as late as possible. The perfect one, of course, would be the Muir, his favourite point, his favourite springboard. Hill number 18 of 19. Until then, he'll try to control the head of the peloton. Just 1.5 kilometres, just over a mile now to the climb of the Forest, the unknown climb, which is 950 metres long, has an average gradient of 1 in 10 or 10%. It's going to be a toughie.
Scorice is the town they're going through just now. And interestingly enough, Thomas Lisa giving a few turns at the front end here for Dario Pieri. Pieri is a big, strong bike rider right now, but you can see this. You can see Rabobank not very happy with the fact that they've been caught out by that counter-attack. A big favourite has gone off the front. That was Mark Wouters stirring it up. A long line of the main field as they try and set it up. That time gap, 13 seconds to the main field. And I think that will get reduced somewhat dramatically on this very difficult climb of Forest, and then followed almost immediately by the climb of Steenberg, just about 3 kilometers further up the road. There's a big concentration of climbs coming up right now, and again, look at that, Benoit Joachim on the front there. He's having a great ride. I think he is sacrificing himself for Yaroslav Ekimov, who I think is still comfortably in the main field.
Well, he's having a wonderful ride, and I'm looking down there, Paul. I couldn't see the rainbow jersey of Cipollini, so maybe he was drifting off the back to retire. But we'll wait and see on that one as we now head up towards this climb of Forest.
Difficult approach as well, tricky corners here, and Lisa not managing to stay in the slipstream of Dario Pieri around these corners. In a few moments time they will swing around to the left and kick up the main field. You can see accelerating. It's almost a bunch sprint to the bottom of these climbs all the time. Still a very big group here in contention at the Tour of Flanders, but I think Thomas Lisa's decided, Phil, to call it a day right now.
He's going to have to just hang on here. There's nothing else he can do. Those legs aren't going to take much more. A wry smile, I think, from Thomas. Speaks very good English, by the way. At 46 kilometers to go, it's been a long way out front for him. Dario Pieri, 1 second in the Tour of Flanders, now trying to go it alone for the win. And this again is Yaroslav Ekimov this time, is it? No, it's still, he looks very like him in that position, doesn't he? But this is still Joachim, who's now been given a little bit of a head here, which is possibly a good move by the peloton, because he hit them enough times to get away, and now he's just trying. Now what's happening here at the back of the race? A problem on the right. He just about stayed on his bike there.
That was Duala just going off the road there.
Fabian Duvala.
I think the way he went into that corner, I think he probably had a flat tyre at the back end. This is the chaser here. It's a surprising move. He's been given his freedom to try and get across here to Dario Pieri. Benoit Joachim, the former champion of Luxembourg. There is the main field, but they don't yet, Phil, seem to me to be in anger and in earnest in their attacks, and they're quite happy to let Pierre get off the front. And as long as he doesn't build himself up something like a 1 minute advantage, they don't have to worry too much for the moment, because he's using up an awful lot of energy in this lone attack.
They won't be concerned yet, not even if Benoit Joachim does catch up with Dario Pieri. But it's a move that Joachim would not have been allowed to have made if George Hincapie had been riding today. He would have had a different job in the race, but as I say, without an obvious leader, especially with Max van Heeswijk now behind the race, there's a chance here to go out and do what domestics sometimes get the chance to do, and that is go out and make your own name.
Well, this is a bit strange right now, because 1s and 2s are starting to ride across from there. Benoit Joachim has actually been caught, and 1 or 2 riders trying to force themselves off the front end of the main field. Now, this is rather strange here to see this kind of action happening. Here is Thomas Liese about to get caught. We're on this very difficult climb now of Verreest. It looks as if Quick-Step have got a man up there as well for the moment.
This is, I think...
Looks like Rolf Aldag.
Like Rolf Aldag, but
yeah.
He must have grown a little beard, but he's certainly got his riding style.
It is Aldag.
And when he looks over his shoulder, that's him. And he's gone straight by on the climb of Forest.
Kop van der Wegstrijd on the left-hand side is Dario Pieri, and the Achtervolger is the chaser, and it's strangely enough coming from Rolf Aldag. It's a very strange situation developing in the front end of the main field right now as they go over the summit there of Forest. Aldag second on the road, just over 26 miles to go to the finish. There's Leyser, who led the bike race for an awful long time. There's a move coming off the front here now from the La Française des Jeux. And Benoit Joachim, Phil, there has managed to stay in contact with the counter-attack, but let's see where the main field are at the moment. Obviously not too worried about that climb. Museo riding up at the front end. What an unbelievable bike ride. He's been riding second or third wheel for an awful long time here right now.
Driving on still, Roberto Petito. Done very, very well in this breakaway.
Peter van Petegem in the red and white jersey of Domo Lotto. He's, I would think, scanning the lists of all of the pre-race favourites. Men like Eddy Merckx and all the other team managers feel that Peter van Petegem is the #1 favourite. The big question mark and the big headline in all the Flemish-speaking newspapers yesterday was, how strong is Johan Museo? And nobody really knows, and that's the big question mark when we come into the last 20 kilometres or so. Tricky descent off this climb of Forest, Phil.
And this might be what the worry was. At least it's not raining here because of the twist coming down, being chased by Ralph Aldag. Aldag, a big cyclist, finding it a little bit more difficult perhaps to get round the corner. But he will be a very useful ally for the moment, at least, if he could catch up with Pieri, because Aldag is a very strong workhorse, and he's seen his chance today and take a little bit of pressure off Stefan Westerman. I think Zabel is also still back in that big peloton.
Well, Aldag turned pro a very long time ago. Turned professional back in 1991 when he rode for the Helvetia team at the time. I think first time we saw him was at the Tour du Pont in America. Got himself a couple of stage wins over the years at that event.
There's 4 riders, so Joachim here has got himself into a nice little working group here. Looks like De Paolo has also got into it. Lisa hanging on the back.
That was Christophe Mongin of La Française des Jeux as well.
Making the 4, yeah.
There's Museo sitting in second place. Van Petegem. Michael Bogard, the second orange jersey there of Rabobank, still very much in attention. A dangerous rider, I would say, towards the end, because if you remember last year, the big rivalry developed between Peter van Petegem and Johan Museo. They would not work together to chase down Andrea Taffy when he was on the attack.
Well, you can tell now by the face of these riders, every time they go over the hill, they'll unship a few boys at the back. But there is still a very tenacious bunch in this race. Dario Pieri has gone away from the head of that race when it was flat out, as we now come on to the next climb, the Steenberg, with its steepest part at 17%. This is a real steep climb, this one. Again, because it's short, it's steep, 825 metres. Climb number 14, 5 more still to go after this.
It's interesting the way they've changed the route of the Tour of Flanders a little bit over the last couple of years, because in fact this climb has not been used since 1997, It's the first time it's been brought back in. It is a very difficult climb, but at least it is a climb that is on a very smooth surface. So he's got an advantage of around about 15-20 seconds. You see, they realise the danger of this man. Look how well he's built. He's a very strong bike rider. Typical build for a race of this nature. And right now, I don't think they want to let him get too much of an advantage. This is the chasing group now of 4 riders. And there you can see that's Mangin in second place. He's got the red and white bands there on his shoulders, indicating he's a former champion of France, but that was in the cyclocross discipline. Benoit Joachim has got himself in there as well. And whoever else was in that group, Phil, has actually just been left behind. Paolini has got in there for Quick Step. He's obviously been the man dedicated to go out and look for the counter-attacks right now.
That's Llyich who's been unhooked, I think. He was the 4th man, but he hasn't been able to hang on the steep part of this climb. He's done most of them on his own today, but hill number 14 has proved just a little bit too much for him.
That's Dario Pieri just at the front there, so he hasn't got much advantage over this group of counter-attackers. And in fact, that's Aldag. I'd forgotten all about him. He was caught in no man's land. So Dario Pieri is still off the front, chased in second position on the road by Rolf Aldag. Then this group of 3 chasers here moving forward right now.
Well, Aldag may as well just ease up, let these 3 come across, and then set about bringing back Pieri as a foursome. So we've got Pieri, Aldag, followed by Mangin, Luco Paolini and Benoit Joachim. That's the situation, but if they look over the shoulder, there's an awful lot of players still want a part of this act. It looks like Joachim here having a little trouble to follow the pace now as Mangin's gone clear. These 2 have got together over the top with 41 kilometres to go. And there'll be 3 more to give them a hand in a minute.
Well, this race is actually forming in front of our very eyes here right now. That's a great ride here by Rolf Aldag, who's been a professional for a long time, turned pro back in 1991. And I think Dario Pieri would be somewhat surprised to find himself getting some help. But the man in the pink jersey there for Deutsche Telekom, I have to say he's a very tough bike rider. This is the 2nd group on the road. And they're trying urgently to pull themselves up, and in the main field they too now are realizing that the race is starting to scurry away from them.
Up here for a bend, and it looks as though the pressure's gone off at the moment. Now the shadow boxing is beginning. 5 men shortly to come together, and none except Pieri, I think, will be considered a big favourite. Attacked by Cipollini. Is he going again? It's caused a reaction.
I think that's Max Schianri, because if you just look, there's a small bandage on the inside of his left leg there, and Schianri admitted yesterday he'd been suffering from a problem he had 4 or 5 years ago, a small muscle which aggravates the tendon just behind the knee. So I think we might find that's Max just getting away off the front end of the main field. Sant Maria Horbeck, I think that is Schianri, and followed again by who? The Lion of Flanders. Lion of Flanders himself.
Oh, is that Museo who's jumped on?
Yeah, amazing. Johan Museo is riding 3rd, 4th wheel all the time, looking for the little moves. He's actually looking for a counter-attack right now. He wants to get into a breakaway, but he doesn't want to use his own power to get off the front end of the main field, because if he has to attack, I think he would like to do it on the Berendries or Tin Bosch. Those are his favourite climbs. Get a small advantage, ride down to the Muur, and then hopefully consolidate on the ride down towards the Bosberg.
Well, again, you see, he's chasing down the moves, but he wants a free trip up to his teammate, Paolini, in that chasing group of 3. Doesn't want to endanger him. It's a typical tactic, this. We've seen it over the years, time and time again, by Johan Museu. And now he's waiting for others to come to the front. And he still has his cards to play, because up front, Paolini could win this race for sure.
Well, in 5th, 6th position there was the first time I've seen him. I was fairly certain he was in the group, but Yaroslav Ekimov riding to the front right now. This is a very big group here, still in with a chance at the Tour of Flanders. Museo there, 3rd position. A little bit further back, you can see that was Ekimov just swinging out there in the dark blue jersey of US Postal Service. He too is in a pretty good tactical position, because he's got his man Benoit Joachim in the front. Now let's have a look at the race situation. There are the 2 leaders. Pulling back, we should be able to see the 3 chasers, and they are around about 20 seconds in arrears. There they are right now, Joachim, Mangin, Paolini. If they get together, this is going to change the front end of the main field quite dramatically, and make it very tactically difficult for teams like Lotto Domo, who have to seriously organise their chase on the front of the main field.
25 miles to go, 40 kilometres to go. Still absolutely no pointers to who's going to win this year's 87th Tour de Flanders. There's a lot of favourites still watching Johan Museeuw. He has a card to play because he's got a man up front who can handle them. Let's not forget either that Bartoli is in this group, a man who always surprises and loves racing in this part of the world, coming back, yes, from injury. I think this again is Petito on the front setting the pace for Bartoli's team. Cassani in second place, Museeuw hovering menacingly in third slot. Just behind him, he's gone off my sight now, so I can't see who it is.
Thomas Llyich
There's
is just
Thomas
getting
Llyich
caught.
on far left, yes, he's just been picked up.
Survived a pretty long time considering he was just dropped from that
Fantastic.
group. Brilliant ride by him. Museeuw happy there in third. Move out of the way, please. Mr. Museeuw is orchestrating the front end and directing television cameras right now. Matin is the Cofidis rider in fourth position. Ekimov over on the right-hand side with Michael Bogert as well moving forward as we rejoin the two leaders. Aldag very comfortably around that corner. Again, another nice little section of cobblestones, Phil. This is really, I think, one of the most difficult bike races. It's a 2-kilometre section of cobblestones here that these riders face, and you can be sure that in the main field behind, they will accelerate once they get to this point.
Well, Johan will certainly ride them better than most if he gets half a chance at it. But as we continue now at 39 kilometres to go, this is quite a long stretch of cobblestones here at Brackle. And these are the three chasers, and just up the road are the two leaders. But they're having a real trouble fight here to get on terms with those two up front. Hardly waiting for them when 5 might go clear better than 2 rather. Here's the drive at the back, still being done by Fassa Bortolo, and I think it's probably because Micheli Bartoli has insisted that he has a chance now at the front of this group.
Well, these guys now, as they hit this section of cobblestones, have got a 2-kilometre section of cobblestones. 3 kilometres after that, they will hit the Leyberg. Moving around the outside, look at that, Cassani. Dario Pieri accelerating. He's looking for the smoothest part of the road here, going across. It's a very, look at the power of this man. Daldag is trying to find something somewhere to stay in his slipstream, but in fact he's slipping off the tail there of Pieri. And look at the gaps, 22 seconds to the chasing group of 3, but it's a lot less than that because there is the main field making the junction to the chasers.
Well, they're picking some of them up, they're picking all of them up there. But
look at
Pieri
Cassani.
has gone again. Now Museeuw once again is free to fly because he's got no teammates out in front, but he'll look for others to make the move. It is the Mure, I think, where he'll choose to make the move if they come to it together.
Enrico Cassani on the front setting the pacemaking. Last year he was a teammate of Johan Museeuw. I think that was Guédon just peeping round there for the Française de Jeu. May well have been Mongin, who's just been picked up from that counter-attack of 3 riders. Nico Matin looking good. Look at this, Museeuw digging deep now. Let's catch these guys by surprise if you can.
Well, this is a cheeky move now, but there's caused a consternation behind now. Put him on the cobblestones. Few can ride with him. Johan Museeuw tapping out the rhythm. Not going bad for a man that's had a problem with his respiratory, with breathing this year. He looks as though he's not so bad after all.
Well, you know, he's a sly old devil, Johan Museeuw, but I have to say, the best man in the world over the cobblestones. Look at this acceleration. Matin riding very comfortably on his wheel. That is Guédon, who's actually replaced the Française de Jeu rider, and they're opening up a pretty serious gap right now. There is the main field. The Lion of Flanders is roaring right now, and they're not too far away, Phil, from starting the Leyberg. Climb number 15 of the day, and that will be just 5 climbs left to go to the finish.
Well, that turn of speed on his favourite cobblestones has torn the peloton to shreds. And Johan Museeuw has done it again, waiting for his teammates to weaken them and then put in an attack. He wants help now. He's made the big effort to cause the split. Now he wants people to come and work with him. It's Nico Matin, I think it is going with him there.
Well, Nico Matin accelerating. Look a little bit further up the road there. I would think that is Rolf Aldag, who's been dropped there by Dario Pieri. But that was an absolutely unbelievable acceleration by Johan Museeuw. He's got the power in those legs, which are absolutely remarkable. Here in the middle there, as we start the climb with the Leyberg, is the man from Team Telecom. Nico Matin is quite happy to come forward. He can see this as being a very good move here right now. Guédon having the race of his life since winning Paris-Roubaix a couple of years ago, and Van Petegem has made it as well. Peter Van Petegem, we are now looking at the same protagonists who were on the acceleration last year. Peter Van Petegem doesn't live too very far away from here, and this is the first time we've seen him putting his nose to the front end. The big names are coming out to play, Phil.
Well, they certainly are now. Van Petegem knows that this is the move that Museeuw is making. He could not wait in the peloton. He had to go with it. because once you let Museo go, you never see him till the finish. He's not afraid to ride 40, 45 kilometres on his own in a classic. He's shown us doing that many times. And so you've got to go with the move now. And this is a big one that's coming up now. And this is Museo looking over and saying, well, come on, somebody else have a go.
He's saying, I've started the move, come on, everybody has to work, and he's not too happy there about the presence of Peter van Petegem. I think he was hoping to surprise him. Let's not forget, Van Petegem, a winner of the Tour of Flanders, the younger rider, and if it comes down to the sprint, I would expect Van Petegem to be much faster than Johan Museo, although Museo got himself across the line in front of Van Petegem last year.
Yes, but I don't know if he can do it this year, and it might be the cause of a little regrouping here to try again. There's the lineup for you. They've picked up Pieri. 36 kilometres from the finish. Matan's gone off to the left of our camera. We'll pick him up now because he's going to take benefit of the infighting between Museo and Van Petegem. Aldag closing the gap and Museo chases it. There's Pieri and finally Van Petegem sitting at the back. It's not over yet by any means. The peloton are holding this breakaway. Some 6 riders carefully in their sights, and it's Bartoli's team who's having to do the chase here now. 3 kilometres to the Berendries, which is a climb of 900 metres and has a maximum percentage of 14. As an attack comes now from the peloton, this is the move.
This is Bartoli. This is unbelievable because this man, I wasn't even sure that he was going to be racing at this time of the season right now. A good move by him. He hasn't got much of an advantage over the main field. There you can see noch, meaning more. 4 more climbs to go. Berendries, Ten Bos, the Muur de Grammont and the Bosberg.
Well, Bartoli knows now if he wants to play, he's got to join this leading group. Pieri, Museo, Van Petegem, all seen as favourites, and I think we could include Nico Matan too, because he's a rider who always rises to these spring classic races, and Cofidis, that's why they come here. Now, we've got the group here. Now, Museo will not overdo things. He's allowing a regrouping here because I don't think he wants to go anywhere with Van Petegem. And there comes the rest of them now, scrabbling across the gap. That breakaway has already got a little bit bigger, so I think Bartoli might have lodged on already. But it's going to come back.
It's going to come all back together. They're going through the town now of Elster. That's 3 kilometres to go to Berendries. And the thing about Museo, it's almost impossible to dictate the tactics he's going to adopt. He's won this race from close by the finish. He's won it from a long way out. He will wait, I think, to see just how the race develops. He's a master tactician when it comes down to this bike race. We're 35 kilometres to go, 4 climbs still left to go, and I think we may well see him have a little tickle when it comes to Berendries, just to see if there's going to be any reaction. But one man who will follow him absolutely everywhere right now is going to be Peter van Petegem, who looks in good form right now, and I have to say, for many of the Flemish experts, the big favourite to win this bike race.
Well, there's about 20 in this chase group. There are 9 in the leading group. And that's, I think, just about all now. This Max Chiandri again, and surprising us both here, but riding extremely well on the front of that peloton.
Yep, Chiandri admitting this might be his last ever Tour of Flanders, his last ever season. And it may well be that he'll come up with a great performance. Turned professional, Phil, back in 1989. And in these days of high-performance professional cycling, not many bike riders have a career that long.
No, and he was 7th in the Tour in this race 2 years ago, and very disappointed he was too, because he felt his teammate Dierksen had messed it up for him. But there we are, that's life. As we now look at the breakaway, and the whole of the heart is not yet into this.
Michael Bogard is one of the riders that's made the gap across there. It's a very strange tactical situation unfolding right now as we get closer to Berendries. We can't be very much more than 1.5 kilometres away. And certain teams now starting to get themselves organised. It looks as if that might be either Cassani, I think that's Cassani in 3rd position moving forward. Fabio Baldato is in this group as well. But nobody in that front group there really decided to get the organisation going. I think they're not too happy with the presence of 1 or 2 riders like Peter van Petegem, who has got a very good sprint, but 2 guys have decided to pop off the front.
But I don't think it'll be the favourites here because they're now marking each other out of it. But the arrival of Bogart in this breakaway is also going to disturb their rhythm, because Bogart is a strong man from a small group. He could ride off on his own. His big race, of course, the Amstel Gold Race, coming his way soon. And he's bound to meet one Lance Armstrong in that. Nico Matan and Monjean are the 2 riders that have gone away, is it?
It's Guédon, actually.
Oh, sorry, Guédon, yes, beg your pardon, Ferry Guédon. Had a little bit of a change a few kilometres ago. And this man, when he was a big surprise when he won Paris-Roubaix, but now he's developed into a very good, solid rider. And this looks like one of the best performances we've seen from him for quite some time. But he's looking for the moves, and he's taken it. He won Paris-Roubaix back in 1997. And he also, by the way, before he turned pro, he was second in the amateur Paris-Roubaix. That was a few years back.
He won himself a stage last year in the Dauphiné Libéré. This is Berendries. Now, this is a climb where I would think we'd get some acceleration. Look at Vandenbroucke on the right-hand side.
Still
He,
looks
too,
cool.
is looking very comfortable. Here's Comesso as well.
I can't believe Comesso is still here, but here he is. He doesn't win many races, but he chooses them well, like a stage of the Tour de France or a couple of times champion of his country. And look at this. He's been riding near the front all day long without actually coming to the front. He's changing that right now on Berendries. Balducci is the rider in yellow, nailed on the front of the chase group there. These are the two riders trying to go clear.
Well, Frédéric Guédon, he's in second position here for the Française du Jeu. It's a great move here by Nico Martin on the front. And in fact, Nico Martin doesn't have such a great relationship with the Tour of Flanders, because in fact a couple of years ago he crashed and fractured his hip, and that was after making a comeback, having stopped the sport, being told he wasn't able to race anymore because of a serious heart problem. Comesso showing the power that he's got on this very short, steep climb here. Huge crowds again, Phil, and as you can see, despite the early morning misty rain, it has turned out to be a very nice spring day, although somewhat cold here in Flanders.
It's about 12 degrees, about 57, 58 degrees maximum Fahrenheit today. But these two riders are clear. You've got some idea with that shot of Comesso how high and how quickly they get up to the heights here, because this is over 100 meters above sea level, and they climb virtually the 100 meters in just the short distance of the climb of 900 meters. And this is Marlux on the attack here. I think it's Milosevic who's having a little go.
And moving into second position there, there's a white jersey, and I don't believe it could be Danilo Hondo. Trying to get a look round there to see whether it is the Paolo Bettini who's come forward once again, but we didn't manage to just get round the side there. There is a...
I think actually it's the new colours of Fassa Bortolo.
Yeah.
It is, and it might well be. I can't see
Bartoli.
his face either
It's
now.
Bartoli.
It is Bartoli,
And
yes.
Frank Vandenbroucke.
And so this again, another significant move, as Bartoli clearly used to be a man for this region a couple of years ago. Now looking like he might well be returning to the grand old days of the mid-90s, when of course he won this race in 1996.
Well, in fact, just taking onto the back there was Frank Vandenbroucke. There are the two leaders, Guédon and Nico Martin. They've gone over the top now of Berendries. Just 3 more climbs to go towards the finish, 32 kilometers. Move coming off the front there. Comesso is the man who started that move, but there's a counter-attack come over the top here of Berendries.
And this is Milosevic, isn't it, as he comes up towards the race?
It's a good move here by this team who...
The speed, just nearly 70 kilometers an hour here.
Peter van Petegem has got into that counter-attack off the front there as well. So this is once again, Berendries has caused a small split on the front end of the main field. We've got high speed here. It's a tailwind descent off Berendries, 70 kilometers an hour, 45 miles an hour, as they try to nail back the two leaders who are still working exceptionally well together. This race now starting to unfold piece by piece, but the main field still are not too far behind, Phil.
Now this counter-attack from Marlux has really improved on the gap here to Guédon and to Martin. And it's also given Museo a little bit of a breather back there while somebody else does the chasing. But I really don't see this to be anybody else but Raivis Bilovosic, because he's the lead of Marlux. He's got great form after his victory in 3 days of Depana, which is in this region and which was held midweek. Always a good indicator as to who has the big form. And wisely, he's making others join him and do some work.
Well, it looks this time as if Peter van Petegem has read the bike race nice and correctly, because I cannot see Johan Museo in this group. I think I can see just a bit further back there Michael Bogert in about 3rd or 4th position. And it's not a good move when you see riders looking back. There's Yaroslav Ekimov there in the blue jersey of US Postal as well. These are the two leaders, Frédéric Guédon and Nico Martin, but they're not much more than about 10 seconds over the chasing group, which is around about 10 riders, in the main field a further 10, 12 seconds behind.
Well, they're picking up a very nice tailwind just now, which is going to make it difficult to cross the gap. They're all more or less flat out. Guédon looking very good, and another man who's indicating to us the fine morale in Française du Jeu this year. They are really on top of themselves. They've had some great results. They're looking good, and when you have a nice run and you can put it together, You try moves and they sometimes work. You just don't seem to be able to do a thing wrong. And get on now in the breakaway. Quick word with Matin. Both speak French, of course. Both on French teams, indeed. But I think they might well opt out in a minute to let those riders come up behind them as they're heading towards the 10 Boss climb.
Van Petegem, Commesso, Cassani, Ekimov. Moving up there. This is Bogard. Baldato. This is a good counter-attack from Vandenbroucke and Johan Museo just sitting on the back. That was a good move. They've got a nice situation. Good to see Bartoli there, Phil, because I really didn't think he would be a figure in this year's Tour of Flanders.
No. People in the know from Holland said neither would Bogart be there, but there he is, driving and looking very, very strong here. But it's beginning to look, though, shuffling the deck down now to a nice little manageable group. Containing the majority of the pre-race favourites. The big Lion himself, of course, was the favourite. Back into Brackle, and this is heading up now towards the next climb, which is 10 Boss.
This is the home
It looks as though, Paul, ironically, because they're all tense on the climbs, that the race is split up with this tailwind on the flat.
It's rather strange that that is happening. We're coming into the town of Brackle, which is where 10 Boss starts from. This is the hometown of one Peter van Petegem, who will be very happy with the situation right now. Johan Museo, Phil, I thought had missed out on this move, but amazingly enough, he's slipped across the gap at the right time, not using too much energy, and in the group is his teammate Frank Vandenbroucke. The two leaders still surviving, the Kop van der Wegstrijd, Frédéric Guédon in second position. 29 kilometers to go, and these are the small streets leading up to the 10 Boss climb. And this race, 10 Boss, has been in the Tour of Flanders 6 times previously, and indicating here we're just about 3/4 of a kilometer to the start of the climb. It's a smooth surface climb, but it is a very difficult climb, and in the past it has been the launch pad for many a victory towards a solo ride to the finishing town of Meerbeek. But I'm not sure, I have a feeling today that the Johan Museo, who wants to try and win this Tour of Flanders for a 4th time, may well save everything for a big attack on the Mur de Grammont. This is Ekimov.
Ekimov riding well again now. Retired briefly last year, came back and has found his old form. The Olympic champion of the time trial.
And a world champion at the team pursuit. And I asked him about that. Well, you know, how can you still keep the form going? He said, I just love cycling. I enjoy it. But the 8 months that he had away from the sport gave him that psychological break, because, Phil, he's been racing since he was a youngster for Russia.
Well, I remember commentating on him when he won a gold medal. 1984, I think it was.
88
in 1988 at Seoul, that's right. They boycotted in 84, of course, the Soviet Union in Los Angeles.
Don't let a man like Yaroslav Ekimov get too much advantage, because he is a superbly stylish rider.
You know, like a lot of these guys, because there's no actual leader here. Museo's trying to make the most of tactical situations, but there's a lot of riders believe they can win this race, and that's causing the individual attacks.
Watch out, watch out. Here's the Lion of Flanders. Johan Museo again just testing the waters.
Look at the gear.
Huge gear. Van Petegem on his wheel there all over this bike race. Straight up to Ekimov. Van Petegem comes straight by. Museo's got a problem though. Museo wasn't able to respond to that, Phil, and Van Petegem has gone.
His legs wouldn't go, and Van Petegem will have noted that. He came up with an enormous gear at 28 kilometers to go on the climb of 10 Boss. Peter Van Petegem will have sensed he might have Museo where he wants him.
Well, he looks comfortable. Look at that, the way he's ridden up there. Serious acceleration. He's over the top now of 10 Boss. He was so comfortable. That was a brilliant counter-attack, and I think he really caught Johan Museo with his full 37 years of age. This looks like Vandenbroucke trying to get across. He's trying to pull it all back now for Quick Step. He realized that the man from Gistel on the North Sea is really having a hard time. He set up the attack there, but he wasn't able to follow through.
Still got that feeling that it's a long way to go this race in tactics, because Van Petegem now will try and reach Guédon and Matin. There they are, 27 kilometers from the finish, about 16.5 miles, 17 miles to go. These are the two leaders. Van Petegem, the previous winner of this race in 1999, is coming across very quickly.
He's there, he's right on them. What a superb move, Phil. He looks so comfortable riding up that climb. It's a big gear climb as well, very smooth surface. I always find the difficult thing now is the long ride from 10 Boss. It's at the summit of 10 Boss, it's 27 kilometers to go, and they've now got to ride all the way to the Mur de Grammont. That's around about 10 kilometers of open road.
Now, to survive, you have to be in a situation in a group like this where everybody shares the pacemaking. But once they see Peter van Petegem, well, their morale will certainly go away from the other two.
Well, Van Petegem assessing then what the attack has done, and it's an enormous gap in such a small move. Two riders trying to get across, and here we go this time, and it's Dave Brylance who's the Marlux rider. Didn't recognise him as Dave Brylance earlier, but he's certainly there now. Brylance, another good man on the counter-attack with Frank Vandenbroucke, who wasn't seen as the hot favourite on the team, but we thought he was a very good first reserve because we know he's riding well.
He's a great bike rider. When you think of all the ups and downs and psychological problems he's had with his career, to come back to this level. And just look at those nationalities there, Phil. Just a few moments ago, it was all Italian flags we were looking at. Now, apart from the French flag of Frédéric Guédon, we're looking very much at Belgian domination.
Well, because of the nature of this race, you never know which attack is going to convince everybody else the race is done. And I've just got that feeling it's not over yet. 5 riders coming together, but once Vandenbroucke gets up there, Van Petegem will start to reconsider his options here. And Brylance also, just look at the speed of Vandenbroucke here. Dave Brylance is having a terrific job trying to hold on to his back wheel.
I have a funny feeling that the race referee should get in just a little bit closer, because some of those motorbikes, Phil, have been just a bit too close for my liking. Vandenbroucke has showed extreme power to get across this gap. There are 3 riders at the front. The time gap there, just 5 seconds. These two have ridden across the gap, and you will be absolutely certain right now that Johan Museeuw in the group behind will give the advantage to this young man, because although he's not on the top of his form, he certainly is a very dedicated man to trying to win this bike race right now. He's nodding all over the top end of his bike, trying to stay on the wheel of Brylance. Brylance, you see, is right on the rivet too there. They flicker the arms, say, come on, let's just nail it back, let's get together. Now, a 5-man group with this 10-kilometre section of flatland between the Ten Bosch and the Mur de Grammont is a dangerous tactical move.
24 kilometres to go, that's 15 miles to go. We've now got 5 riders in the lead. The men who started it, Frédéric Guédon, Nico Matin, joined by Peter van Petegem. Now's come Dave Brylance and Frank Vandenbroucke. And they're all together as we line up for the Mur itself. And that is going to be carnage today on the climb of the Mur de Grammont, which is going to be resurfaced, by the way, during next year, but with new cobblestones. So make the most of this one.
Oh, that was lucky. I couldn't imagine the Mur de Grammont with tarmac on it. That would not be the same Tour of Flanders at all. That climb is such a strategic climb in the Tour of Flanders. At 16 kilometres to go to the finish. Van Petegem looking over his shoulder. Here's the composition of the front group. Guédon, Vandenbroucke, Van Petegem, Matin and Brylance. And I would think Peter van Petegem very happy with this situation here right now. Theoretically, if this goes to the finish as 5 men, he is the fastest man. But I'm not sure we can discount a surprise move there by Frank Vandenbroucke, because he has got a great tactical situation to play on the road. He'll say, I don't want to work because my man for the day today is Johan Museeuw.
But what a situation now. Here we have a breakaway, all on different teams. It won't go to the sprint. Stuart O'Grady trying to come up here with Bogart setting the pace. And Bartoli's in here as well, and I think it's Ekimov as well. This is still a workmanlike group. This race is far from done yet, and it's going to be an absolute ripper when they get onto the Mur and the Bosberg, because with no teammates up front to control it, there has to be a breakaway go from that break.
Well, I tell you what, the one man who seriously cracked there on that last climb of Ten Bosch was Johan Museeuw, because he's not in this group. No. Ekimov has survived. Ivanov is in there. This is a very good move here by Celestino, who is in great form right now. There is Ivanov at the back there in the white jersey. I tell you what, Yaroslav Ekimov looks pretty good, and it's great to see Stuart O'Grady there. O'Grady, a canny bike rider, got a great tactical sense from his track background. If this bike race comes back together, we could get an Australian win.
Well, that would be absolutely tremendous for the Australians. But O'Grady said when he won the Australian Championships in Ballarat in Victoria in Australia in January this year, he wanted to do his jersey proud and have a great season. And it looks as though he is riding superbly. He's come to the fore. He said he was going okay at this talk at the start this morning. You never know how it works out on what is very often just a pure gamble, the Tour of Flanders. You've got to be in the right position when the crashes come, or the flat tyres or the blocked roads. But if you've got the legs and you can hold position, then this is where you finish up. And this is a very, very strong chase group indeed. And I can't believe that those 5 are going to hold this cavalry off.
Well, there's the difference between them there right now. It's not very much more than 100 meters, and you can see the front group of 5. They are not working together as a cohesive group. There's 2 guys doing a couple of turns, sitting up, and that does not help to keep a high pace making on the front end of the main field. There's the rest of the group here. I would expect Johan Museo to be in that group here right now. A counter-attack coming off the front end. Camesso again trying to get clear for the moment. Rolf Aldag there for Telecom having a storming ride at the moment. One man we haven't seen a lot of, though, is Stefan Weserman, who looked very confident. And you could be right, Phil, you know, this race is far from run out right now, because it may well be that it all comes together on the slopes of the Mur de Grammont and the whole race face changes once more.
Well, this is a strong little move here, and tagged on to the back is the tall, long legs of Rolf. Salvatore Camesso, if he got up to the front, well, I think the sprint would be a done deal, but he's not there yet. Looking down on the 5 men who are now setting the pace in the last 22 kilometers, and Nico Matan nearest camera. Get on the 2 men that started. It's still a lot of power in those legs. Frank Vandenbroucke also very friendly at the start this morning, wouldn't give anything away. But it's working him now. He's the boss of the quick step right now, because I think Museo has cracked big time. Also, Bettini is gone, so it's up to Frank Vandenbroucke. We haven't seen Tom Boonen all day.
Well, Vandenbroucke, when you think of all the woes he's had over the last couple of years, in fact, in the last 3 years, he's only won 1 race. But the incredible thing is, Phil, he's had a total of 52 career wins, and what great big wins they've been. Races like the Tour of Austria. The I think most impressive win we ever saw him get was Liège-Bastogne-Liège in what I think was a record speed at the time.
Yeah, and remember when he won the points race in the Vuelta a España, because he won it on the last day, which was rather upsetting for Robbie Hunter. But here we are now, and it looks as though Frank is trying to check in on his radio there with what's going on behind. And Petegem is chasing them down again, looking at them, waiting for them, trying to tell them, I'm very strong, but not giving too much away, because he has a great chance in the sprint. The cars are coming across the gap a bit early, I think, because there we have the chase group of O'Grady in the right of our picture. Bogart, number 41, Ekimov just ahead of him. This is a very, very good group here now, and just tagged on the back here is Mirko Celestino. He's got 2nd place in Milan-San Remo. If he finishes in this company, he'll be the new leader in the World Cup, and that'll be a significant thing. Oh, and watch those wheels for Celestino.
That little line you can see down the middle of the road. These roads are made out of cement. They're laid out in big blocks, and all the riders call that line down the middle of the road Death Valley, because very often the ceiling between the 2 sections of concrete gets ripped away over the years, and I've seen many riders get their wheels stuck in that, and it's always a scary moment, and riders try and flick across. Moving forward here, Lotto Domo giving information there to Peter van Petegem. This is what the race situation is just now. The second group, Phil, only 10 seconds behind, and the main field, which Johan Museo is still in, is just inside of 40 seconds.
They're checking out the line there, Get on as he comes down. It wouldn't surprise me he doesn't look over his shoulder and just see who's coming, but just 3 kilometers from the Mur. Now these boys will want to be on before the Mur and try and have the legs to put a counter move in, because the Mur surely now is going to split this breakaway into a new formation. It's very steep, very hard, very famous, and normally the domain of the line. But I think the line is no longer with us.
Well, he may well have been telling the truth about that problem he had. This is a confirmation of the contents of this group. Celestino, Ivanov, Bogard, Baldato, O'Grady and Ekimov. I tell you what, Phil, look at O'Grady there, wearing number 157, the Aussie national champion. He wants to do as much pride to that jersey as Robbie McEwen did last year, and he looks superb on his machine. This is the next group on the road. There is Joachim. Let's have a look here if we can see the confirmation of who exactly is in this group.
All teammates at the front. This group isn't going to come up at the moment. It's the Lampre boys who have missed out, but with 4 riders from 4 teams in the chase group up front, they're not going to do much here. I think they've seen the last of the sharp end today, as we now look down on the town of Gerardsbergen and the wall itself, the Mur, and surely there's going to be a new group when we get to the top of it. Van Petegem, who loves this race, and he's clearly stronger than Museo today. Dave Brylan's a remarkable rider who one day is going to win a big race, and it might be today. Feeding time for Nico.
Well, Nico had a good start to Paris-Nice there with his win in the opening day's prologue, but a sad Paris-Nice for those guys, losing Andrei Kevalev in a strange accident on the slopes of the Croix de Chabouret. And he will be super motivated today to do something very special, as Frédéric Guédon now begins to miss out a few turns at the back end. There's not very much in this bike race at the moment. There is the famous bridge that takes the riders over into downtown Gerardsbergen. This, I would think, Phil, has to be the most famous climb of the Tour of Flanders. The race has been over it 36 times before. The first time they went over it was back in 1950. Pulling all the traffic out right now. I think it'll come together just in the town and then split up again.
Matan knows the climb. They're all waiting for the move. As we go over the railway bridge, it's a little bit of a hill in itself, this, and then they'll cross the town and head up the cobbles. 18 kilometers left to go, and here comes the catch right at the base of the climb. Not quite.
I think Matin has gone again.
Clear.
I think it's Matin who went again. Looked as if somebody wasn't. It's Guédon.
It wasn't. It was Guédon.
Surprise.
So, well, we never saw him move. We must have missed him because it was Matin who was hanging off the front. But he's kept on with it, and he's going to hit the wall first. Well, and I hope not literally.
This would be a big surprise, because Frédéric Guédon has really not won very much at all since he won Paris-Roubaix. And if he was to surprise all of these Belgians, that certainly would not go down very well at all. He had a win last year in the Dauphiné, but he's not really had that many wins in his career. But I think I'll tell you one thing, at the end of it, you can always say that he was a winner of Paris-Roubaix, and that was back in 1997. He hasn't got to the difficult part of the climb right now, and look at the time gap, Phil. That group has all come together, but the main field with the rest of the favourites a minute behind, and I don't think they will see the front of this bike race once more. Across the town square, here is the group with Bogert on the left, Stuart O'Grady on the right. Well, what a performance that would be if Stewie could stay with them and take it into the streets of Merbeke, because
there's a lot of fans around the world. They'll be cheering for him. You can bet on that. Stuart O'Grady, the master of the Jacobs Creek Tour down under in January, is now looking for a big classic result. But this is the man who crosses Gerardsbergen in the lead. The Français de Jeu Frenchman, Frédéric Guédon, a team that's on a real high and destined for a wild card in the Tour de France. I think they've done enough to suggest they should be there. This is the chase group now of O'Grady, Bogert, Sergei Ivanov, Ekimov, Celestino, Baldato, Matin, Van Petegem, Vandenbroucke and Brylands. That's the composition. One of those names will win the Tour of Flanders today.
We haven't even got to the difficult part yet of the Mur de Grammont, Gerardsbergen. This is just a small section of cobblestone, 700 meters. He'll go across here. This is Ivanov here as well. They'll ride across. In fact, he's got a problem at the back.
No.
Oh, he's not happy. I think he's got a flat tire at the back here, and that is so unfortunate at this stage of the game, because the cars will probably not yet have made the junction. O'Grady, Phil, looking very comfortable, just sitting there. I think he wants to see how operations unfold here on the roads of the Mur de Grammont.
Well, that's cruel luck for the former Soviet champion. 5 stars for the Mur, 1 in 5 or 20% as we shoot up only 77 meters above sea level. This is the easy bit, by the way. Guédon has now hit the cobbles. Now he gets a little bit harder. He'll soon be out of the saddle. But when you're on cobbles this steep, you've really just got to stay in the bike and pin it to the road, because it's so easy to pull it off these cobbles and fall off.
Well, now he looked over his shoulder. He's got a good advantage there, Phil. He's got a 10-second advantage. He's just got to sit down there and hope that he can keep... Well, that 10 seconds was a bit optimistic, I've got to say, because there is the main field. Accelerating on the front, I would expect to see Peter van Petegem. And right up there in third position is Frank Vandenbroucke. And now this is the moment of truth for everybody here. Van Petegem knows his climb. Vandenbroucke next. There is Brylands. This is a real accelerate. Look at the face of Peter van Petegem. He loves this climb. He looks very comfortable. Vandenbroucke all over his bike. I would say, as the French say, Phil, riding au courage. Oh, and he's gone past him.
Straight by. It's about here where you fell off, wasn't it, Paul, on this corner?
Oh, several times.
Okay. Well, we're looking now at Vandenbroucke, this man who is the enigma of the sport. And look, shoulder to shoulder, Van Petegem says, I'm the champion, not you, and has taken him on one as we go up the Muir. And Dave Brylands is in a little bit of trouble now as he loses the back wheel there. It's going to be a tough one for him, but Valdato is still in the hunt. There's Matin, also lost a bit of ground. Now listen to the crowd here. There's a man there on the telephone giving commentary probably to his wife and telling him exactly who's coming first over the top. And here is the chase with Ekimov now, because they split the breakaway. Van Petegem is looking like a winner today.
Well, he's not yet, you know, Phil, because Vandenbroucke is still there. Van Petegem has accelerated twice there to try and get rid of Vandenbroucke, but Balducci, the Italian now former second-place finisher in this bike race, is picking up the tempo as well, and Stewie O'Grady, he's just sitting there.
Twice a second-place finisher to Muserio and Bartoli a couple of years ago, still looking for the win. He's coming here with some great form this year, Balducci. There'll be a little wait for the rest of the race, but the two riders out in front set themselves a big target here. 10 miles to go as we go further down the field.
This is Micheli Bartoli, Pieri there following up there, another Italian, the champion. In fact, Commesso is there. Let's see what has happened to Johan Museeuw, because I think the Lion of Flanders is showing his 37 years of age today and his bronchial problems. Micheli Bartoli, the last time he charged over this mountain like this, it was on his way to victory. I haven't yet seen the helmet of the Lion of Flanders. I think today, there he is, Johan Museeuw at the back of the group. He is having a very difficult time staying in contention here, but the two leaders now on the bike race with 15 kilometers to go are Frank Vandenbroucke, and this is absolutely remarkable, and he is there with Peter Van Petegem. Now, Van Petegem is a great sprinter in his own right, but he, I think, Phil, in the back of his mind will have a worry about the presence of Frank Vandenbroucke. One climb left to go now, and that is the Bosberg, and the Bosberg comes in at 13 kilometers to go to the finish.
The man we always call the boss of the Bosberg, Edwig van Hooijdonk, who went on to win this race a couple of times, is now a commentator here, and I wonder what he's thinking, because I agree with you, Paul. You don't take Frank Vandenbroucke to the finish, because this man seems to always have such the instinct of a brilliant winner when he gets near the finishing line. And though Van Petegem, I think in theory, is quicker than him, it wouldn't be a foregone conclusion at all. And they're working well together now. They've got the gap, but they've got to eliminate the rest of the race first and worry about each other second, I think.
Well, they need to work together right now. They need to consolidate their advantage, because it's still not very much. Look at that. It's just 11 seconds, and you can be sure that everybody in that group behind will be scrambling to try and get back into contention. Stewie O'Grady, I would think, sensibly needs to just hold back and try and conserve as much energy as possible, because he will gamble right now on this all coming back together, Phil, because if it does, you've got to give a big advantage to O'Grady to possibly getting the win. Guédon sitting at the back of the group. He's happy to be in this group just now. There is Nico Matin, very aggressive on today's stage. Brylance is there as well. We get a chance to see the comparison between the two speeds. The Kop van der Weekstrijd, the leading group on the left-hand side. The Achtervolgers, the chasers on the right-hand side. And with a gap of just 12 seconds with 14 kilometers to go, this race is still not done.
Well, we've lost poor old Sergei Ivanov. He's not got back up to that chase group as they continue now to try and get on terms with these two riders. 8 chases, 2. A regrouping of the group behind as well. Bartoli, as far as we know, is just off the front trying to reach these riders. He knew that the Muir was his last chance to get a gap over the field, and we saw him go clear. That's all we know at the minute, as we're now looking at 12 seconds. They're nosing out ever so slightly, but this is how it goes. Here they are. They've got to organise themselves. They've got the firepower here, and they have got the riders. No teams blocking for the two leaders, but they may not have the combined legs anymore.
Well, the problem is this group will have a couple of riders who won't contribute too much. Frédéric Guédin and, of course, Nico Matin. They've been on the attack for a long time, and it's always difficult in a group like that when you've got a few passengers. You don't want to do too much of the work, thinking that you're giving the other guys an easy ride. They're about a kilometre now from the start of the cobblestone section of the Bosberg, and Frank Vandenbroucke is not holding anything back at all. Look at the pedalling action there of Peter Van Petegem in the red and blue jersey of Domo Lotto, looking very comfortable indeed, whereas the style of Frank Vandenbroucke is much more laboured. This is a man on a comeback after so many ups and downs with the sport, but I think today he's got something very special to prove.
Well, nobody's ever doubted his talent, but he keeps getting himself into trouble with drugs, and all sorts of things go wrong for him in his personal life as well. But if he can just straighten himself out, nobody's ever disputed his brilliant ability. And now we've got another attack going here off the front.
Well, that's Nico Matin trying to ride off the front end of the group. There is Balducci there wearing number 71. Could be a surprise winner too if it all comes back together. If it did come back together, it would be an unbelievable sprint finish, because some interesting fast riders in that group. Van Petegem now setting the pace. It's still not very much in this bike race at all. Michael Bogaert there looking across at Brylance. He is in with a chance right now, but to win this bike race, Phil, I have to say, I think Bogaert has to try and win alone. Don't discount the old man there in the blue jersey either, Yaroslav Ekimov. 8 months into retirement, he decided he still loved the sport of professional cycling and wanted to come back. There's the Bosberg, only 475 metres, but look how it kicks up there towards the end. 11% at the summit.
Well, I feel that Vandenbroucke should try something here and see, because I've just got the feeling that Van Petegem is on the day of his life. He looks superb, he's marshalled every move. And Matan hasn't got the legs for the Bosberg. He's about to be picked up again. And look at this now, at the back of the race, Ivanov has rejoined. So he must have had a great wheel change.
I don't know how he did that, an unbelievable return there. He must have taken some serious risks coming off the top there of the Mur de Grammont. Ekimov at the front end of the group there, trying to nail it all back. Van Petegem is the man setting all of the tempo, and he is doing nothing at all to Frank Vandenbroucke, who is comfortably...
Here it goes, it had to come. It had to come, and Van Petegem must have known it. Can he hold him?
Well, I don't think he can. Vandenbroucke accelerating right now. Van Petegem is going to have to dig very deep indeed to catch the young man from Plugstad on the far side of the Flanders. It's a small part of Flanders, caught in the eastern part of Belgium, and you know what? He's got onto the tailwind. Oh, Van Petegem can breathe deeply right now because there are not very many places left to force an attack. Let's look back. It's Ekimov on the front end of that group. The time gap is extending right now, and when they hit the line, Phil, I would say it's going to be about 20 seconds.
He had to go there, but I think Van Petegem has got his number. As we now go back to the break, also trying to survive here. There is Bogart, 4 riders going just over the head of this chasing group. And his Sergei Ivanov has tagged on to the back of those 4 leaders. He's immensely strong today as well.
Well, now this moment here, I just saw Van Petegem look across there. He probably had a quick word with Frank Vandenbroucke and said, right now, we don't have much advantage. Let's not attack each other anymore. We need to work together to survive because we've only got 20 seconds advantage over a very important group of chasers. And now, if those chasers work together, they can pull us back. We're about 12 kilometers to go to the finish line right now, and that's going to take these guys around about 15 to 20 minutes of very serious effort. Look at the chat going on there. Come on, don't attack me anymore. Work together.
Back in 1999, Van Petegem beat Vandenbroucke to the spoils. It might be the reverse this time around, although I have to say Van Petegem looks simply great just now.
He's in great form. You can see the ease of his pedaling action compared to the rough style of Frank Vandenbroucke. This is what they're banking on right now, the fact that there's a lot of tactical manoeuvring going on in that group behind. They're knocking in the neutral service vehicles. The gap is only 20 seconds, but if either of these men were to have a mechanical incident right now, they would be robbed of a serious chance of winning. They need to organise the chase in the group behind right now. It's amazing the difference between the two styles. Vandenbroucke looks almost laboured, but that's the way he's always ridden a bike. Whereas at the back there, the man who was the former national champion at the amateur level of Belgium, Peter Van Petegem, wearing number 111, Phil, he looks very good. The legs are ticking over so smoothly and fluidly.
Well, you have to also take your hat off to the manager of Quick Step, Lefebvre, because when everybody turned their back on Vandenbroucke, he'd been a bad boy. He's been just about everything outside the sport that nobody wanted on their teams. He took a chance with him and gave him a contract, and he's shown he's got his old legs back here now. Let's hope he can straighten out his personal life because he has so much to offer. He's a super bike rider, and now Frank Vandenbroucke would love to reverse the situation of 4 years ago and finally get his name on the Tour of Flanders trophy. We expected a good race today. I think we've got it.
Well, look at that. Just look at the left elbow there of Bogart. He's been down on the ground at some time during this afternoon. At the end of a bike race like this, every bike rider has some story of woe, and the one for Michael Bogart today is going to be the fact that he had a crash somewhere on a cobblestone section, but he's still in the bike race right now. It's not really organised in earnest, and I would think Stuart O'Grady will have a few words with 1 or 2 of the lads there to try and stir them up, because O'Grady must feel, Phil, he's got a very good chance of winning, although it would be a pretty tight sprint between him and Fabio Baldato if it all came back together.
Could be heading for his finest classic result here if he gets a 3rd or a 4th place finish. 23 seconds. They've squeezed out about 3 seconds in this last kilometre or so, but it's holding steady now. There's still plenty of work being done here. There's the champion of Australia, Stuart O'Grady. Trouble for Guédon or just a request, because you can't give the riders drinks at 10 kilometres out. Sergei Ivanov has got back in that group from his flat tyre after a superb chase. What a shame we couldn't see it, but that's the way it goes. We saw the attack by Van Petegem and Vandenbroucke, and they're clear. They're just 9 kilometres. It's still 23 seconds. They're locked in here. There's no way now that they can ease up and start thinking of tactics. They've got to stay on the rivet and try and hold off the chase.
I think that was the discussion that went on between them. There was a very good move by Frank Vandenbroucke on the slopes of the Bosberg, and I think Peter van Petegem, being a very astute tactician himself, realised these two guys need to work together until the final kilometre. Then they can sort it out in what is a very difficult sprint to judge here at Meerbeke, as so many guys have been caught out in the past. It's a long straight sprint and it climbs up all the way to the finish line. If you start too early, you fade before the line, and many big champions have done that, including Johan Museeuw when he got beaten by a fraction of a centimetre by Gianni Bugno.
I wonder what Stewie O'Grady is thinking back there now, whether he plans he can still win it, or whether he just content himself and try and take on some notable finishers here. O'Grady's not a bad sprinter, but we don't see him as a pure sprinter. And Guédon, maybe one last attack in him yet, because he's made this breakaway with Nico Matam, which formed the final move today, if it is the final move between Van Petegem and Vandenbroucke. There's Matin alongside him.
Well, considering those two guys went out on a very long attack, they've still got a fair amount of reserve to be able to consistently move to the front of the group. These two guys are riding exceptionally fast, but I tell you what, they are not doing any more, Phil, to build up their advantage. It's still just 22 seconds. We're 8 kilometres to go. When they get to the 5 kilometre banner, they will then every kilometre see a banner indicating just 1 kilometre less to go to the finish, and they will then and only then start to breathe a sigh of relief. They need to get into the outskirts of Meerbeke if they're going to survive.
It's chiseling up to 25 seconds. It's beginning to look very, very promising at 5 miles, 8 kilometres from the finishing line. Peter van Petegem, Frank Vandenbroucke, they've been in this position before, back in 1999. Van Petegem also finished third last year behind Museeuw. It's a race where he seems to have found his good form. He's looking very cool all day long. In the end, he had no trouble disposing of the Lion of Flanders with a great attack away back now on the Berendries. But these two are not shirking at all. They're working well together. It's still hovering. It's down now to 24 seconds at 7 kilometres. They're not going to waste time looking over the shoulders. They know the chase is right behind.
Well, despite the two different styles of these riders, I'll tell you one thing, Frank Vandenbroucke is not weakening at all. If he was, he would try and do slightly longer turns at the back in the slipstream with the rider in front of him. But right now he realises this is a great chance for the team. He was, at the start of the day, let's not forget, one of the 3 men in with a chance of winning this bike race, along with Bettini, the man who leads the World Cup, and of course the Lion of Flanders himself, Johan Museeuw, who tried to do it in the same place as he did it a couple of years ago on the very difficult slopes of Ten Bosch, but he wasn't able to. Right now, this group, Phil, they are working well together in 2 long lines. You can see everybody's doing a small turn at the front of 40 or 50 metres, then slipping to the back of the line before going forward again. But they're not eating into the advantage of these 2 men. They are consistently staying 25 seconds adrift.
But Balducci there just came briefly to the rear. He would be the hot favourite to take out the sprint from that group. He's finished second on 2 occasions before. Now he'll be looking for a 3rd place this time out. Van Petegem, though, wants the win. Lotto, so often criticised by the followers in Belgium, not getting the results desired. Well, this could be a great day out for Lotto. Robbie McEwen, their other sprinter, who isn't riding, he won more races than anybody else last year. He's watching this race on television today. He's holding himself, hopefully, for a win in Ghent-Wevelgem midweek. And that's his target.
There's not a lot of speed in this group, Phil, and I think if they don't really get their backs into the chase here right now, they're going to see the Tour of Flanders slip away from them. Stuart O'Grady, there's a move here. Looks like there's a move coming from Vandenbroucke, but he's not going to catch out Van Petegem. It was an acceleration, but you know what? Van Petegem is a very astute bike rider. He actually rides a lot of track in the winter as well, and in the past he's been a fairly dominant character in the Ghent 6 Day.
The 30-second buffer is almost upon them now at 6 kilometres to go. That little acceleration by Vandenbroucke was worth a second. Another one, and they could get the half minute. Then I think we can safely say they're not going to be caught. 6 kilometres out, 3.5 miles from the finishing line. Blue skies over them now. Frédéric Guédon sitting here at the back. I think his legs have played their part in the race today. Hasn't got too much left. Bogert likely hurting from the fall he seems to have had as well. but other riders in that group still working hard. But I don't think they've got the combined firepower now to bring these back. They've passed through the psychological barrier, moved it out to 33 seconds. Surely that is now enough. But which one's going to win? I wouldn't like to put a bet on.
I ain't putting any bets on this right now. I did see the Lotto team car coming forward just a few moments ago, and that may be why Peter van Petegem is looking over his shoulder and missing a few turns here right now. And that is rather surprising because he looks the most comfortable of these two riders here. There is the team management. Which one is it going to be? It's going to be Wilfred Peters coming forward. And in fact, on the right-hand side of the car will be Patrick Lefevre, the team manager there. And I wonder what word of advice he had to give to the young man who he was the only one in the sport who would give him a chance.
5 kilometres, half a minute. He might say, don't give it all your effort, because Van Petegem will beat him in the sprint. I think Frank will try again, maybe a kilometre out.
There's a nice little uphill incline around about 1.5 kilometres to go, and that would be the ideal situation for Frank Vandenbroucke to try and surprise Van Petegem. But you can see Van Petegem, Phil, is all of the time riding a slightly smaller gear than his Belgian contemporary in the breakaway, and that gives him the advantage of being able to accelerate to any last-minute bursts that come.
Van Petegem now going through, doing his bit, but is tense. He's expecting a move, I think, from behind. He's riding on one side of the road to force any move on the left shoulder, but he knows that it's not going to go down to a sprint, I'm sure. And there's still a word of exchange there between the two of them. Goodness knows what they're saying at 4 kilometres to go. Now just psychological perhaps, but Lotto come up as well now.
It's Mark Sargent, a former Belgian national champion. He knows exactly how these races unfold, and he will be able to look after Frank Vandenbroucke. But there's not very much you can say in a situation like this except do not waste your chance. 4 kilometres to go right now, and still a 33-second advantage for the two Belgians on the front of this bike race, hoping Frank Vandenbroucke can reverse the result of a couple of years ago. And I tell you what, Phil, he's still, although his pedaling style is rather strange and uncanny and a bouncy style, I think he still has got the legs here to challenge Peter van Petegem.
Well, Marc Sejean there also got a place in this race a few years ago. Was always known as the man of this time of the year for Belgian cycling. So a word of advice might just calm down Van Petegem at this stage of the race, because they're both going to be very tense, very nervous at 4 kilometres for the chase group, 3 nearly now for the two riders up front. And sitting just off the back here, the man who came back after the Muir, Ivanov.
Well, look at this, Vandenbroucke dancing on the pedals here on this slight incline, but he hasn't got the power to ride away from the man wearing number 111, Peter van Petegem. These two guys, look at that, they've nudged it out just a little bit more, Phil, to 36 seconds. I don't think there's very much chance now for Frank Vandenbroucke to try and move away from Peter van Petegem. And I have to think the advantage is going to go to the man in the red and white jersey there, because he is an absolutely superb finisher. But the difference is Frank Vandenbroucke may be able to force him to make a mistake in the sprint, because after all, this is a very strange sprint up the main street here in Meerbeke.
3 kilometres to go. They're now about 3/4 of a kilometre ahead of the second group, which has gone out to 35 seconds. Here they are. I've not seen Stuart O'Grady actually do much in pursuit on this chase group. He's opting, I think, for a hopeful third place finish. As he sits there, these two are working in tandem. Two, perhaps, of the current most famous Belgians there are in professional cycling, Van Petegem and Vandenbroucke. And I think after today, Johan Museeuw will try to recover for a great Paris-Roubaix and then possibly think of retirement as the season unfolds. But today, I think Van Petegem proved just that little bit too good for him. It seemed to me, Paul, as though his legs just locked up, probably with cramp.
I think they locked up completely, and let's not forget he did have a nasty crash in the 3 days of Le Panne. He complained not only about the bronchial infection that seemed to have hit the whole team, but he was also complaining about a very bad knee as well. It just seemed that he stopped. He did everything in the right place, but maybe the body couldn't follow through. But the body has certainly followed through here for Frank Vandenbroucke. The face now, though, on Peter van Petegem, not looking quite as good as it was just a few moments ago, but this could be a little bit psychological.
I just can't imagine what they're saying to each other right now, because they both want to win this race. And if it comes down to the sprint, maybe they've agreed to a side-by-side sprint. Best man takes the win. Maybe that's the way they're taking it to the line. They're just opting to stay clear together. They don't need to worry now. 41 seconds and 2 kilometres to go. The winner is from these two. And I still feel as though Vandenbroucke will launch an attack in that last kilometre.
I think you wait right now. I think he'll wait and see what happens. He realizes it's going to be a very precarious sprint, but you know what? It is becoming rather tactical. I think Van Petegem is a little bit worried about the presence now. Look at him. He's actually easing up. He's trying to force Vandenbroucke to come to the front here. Looking over his shoulder, they're inside of Meribek now. They're inside of 1.5 kilometers to go. They dare not mess about like this too much, because if they do, the group will come from behind.
Well, I must say that Vandenbroucke's going past there, but he's looking in case Van Petegem launched an attack. A little bit of a flurry of action coming from this group now. Also at 2 kilometers, it's gone out to 43 seconds, but they are more infighting now for position for the 3rd place finish. And watch out for Ivanov. He sat at the back there. He's obviously strong today. And Stuart O'Grady also not contributing to this chase, thinking more of being best of the rest at the moment. Nico Matan is the man doing the work. That's Ivanov. Of these two at the back at the moment, and Ivanov refusing to even help him close the gap there.
There's not very much in it all the same. The two men at the front, I think, are losing a certain amount of their advantage, Phil, because it's getting very tactical inside the streets of Meribek. Look at this now. 1 kilometer to go, 1,000 meters. Vandenbroucke forcing still Van Petegem to sit on the front. Van Petegem does not want to be in this position. Vandenbroucke looking over his shoulder. Where are they right now? This has happened before, and you know, this is why the 2-up finish is so precarious in a bike race like the Ronde van Vlaanderen. There's the race referee. He's going to get in behind the two leaders right now. Vandenbroucke is banking everything now on Van Petegem making a mistake. Come on, let's play the game. Let's get to the corners together and decide it in the final 500 meters. But no, I'm going to stay here. You're the fastest sprinter. You can lead me out, and if I've got the legs, I'll come round you.
Up ahead is the right-hand turn to the finish, then it's a steady uphill to the line. You really have got to move in the last 150 meters to win from the back. Vandenbroucke knows it. They were 1st and 2nd last time they duel like this in the late 90s. Now, is it going to be the other way around this time? So Van Petegem brings them into the home straight in 1st place, exactly where Vandenbroucke wanted him. He will wait and wait and wait. He might even force Van Petegem here to move out. Remember, the race is closing down, but I don't think will close down quick enough.
It won't close down quick enough, but look at this. Vandenbroucke comes up alongside. He's going to dig it. It's a long way to go to the finish. They're going to do a drag race, Phil, right now. They're neck and neck, side by side, Vandenbroucke and Van Petegem.
Then Van Petegem will win this now because he just did a perfect sprint. There is no way, but I wonder if there's a second pair of legs there for Vandenbroucke. No, there isn't. Van Petegem gets his 2nd win here, and Frank Vandenbroucke gets the 2nd place finish. A repeat indeed of the result which they had back in 1999.
What a great move there by Van Petegem. He was worried though, Phil. I could see and feel the tension of the presence of Frank Vandenbroucke, but when the acceleration came, he could do nothing, and Fabio Baldato looks like he'll lead them in.
Well, Baldato being challenged by Stuart O'Grady. O'Grady's got the legs, he's got a podium place. An excellent finish for Stuart O'Grady. Nico Matan, Fabio Baldato on the line. Be a photo between the last two, Paul. But Stuart O'Grady has got his finest result in a one-day classic.
Well, he will ride. Those two riders got off the front, but he easily controlled that sprint there for 3rd position. Poor old Frank Vandenbroucke being taken away there to the interview position, but he could do nothing really against a man who obviously looked a lot better, Phil, I have to say, than Frank Vandenbroucke. He looked easy, he looked confident. He was the man who responded to the attack by Johan Museo, and it went down to a very neat finish off by the man from Brakel. In fact, he only lives 20 kilometers away from here, today's winner.
Well, he's come in the favourite in the past and got beaten this time. Not too many people were speaking of Peter Van Petegem. He forced Vandenbroucke in the end, who made his move, but it wasn't really a kick for a sprint. His legs weren't there for the sprint, and Van Petegem knew that and moved clear of him, and won by a long way in the end. Vandenbroucke in the end had to be content with a fine 2nd place. As the huge gap there as we look down from the helicopter. In the end, Vandenbroucke knowing he wasn't going to challenge that line. So Peter Van Petegem wins the 87th running of the Tour of Flanders. And I think if you're a Belgian cyclist, this has got to be the best feeling of a professional bike rider's career. And Vandenbroucke again showing us the long road back does have a silver lining, as he now backs up a fine ride in Het Valk with a brilliant ride here in the Tour of Flanders. So Van Petegem crosses the line. Stuart O'Grady, he's given Australia its finest results, and Phil Anderson finished second back in 1988.
Peter, to win the Flanders one time is good, but second time must have been very special.
For me, it's very special because for my wife, she never had a big victory, and I always said I'm gonna try to win one time again, and it's beautiful.
You're just a bit worried at the end by Frank Vandenbroucke?
Yeah. We ride in the front, and we did everything, but on the Bosberg he attacked, and we have not so much, and we had 25 seconds, and it's better to ride hard than we see the last kilometers. But for me it was easier because I know I'm the fastest.
Well done.
Okay.
Thank you. Stewie, we've been following you for a number of years right now, but to get up there in a classic like that must give you a lot of pleasure.
Yeah, it's by far definitely up there with the best races of my life. Tour of Flanders is one of the big classics, and today I just had to happen, didn't it? I mean, you're up there in so many races, and you just keep trying and trying, and today it nearly came off with the biggest one, but third I'm pretty wrapped with, yeah.
But you must think when you go away from this, you won the sprint for third place so easily. A bit of a letdown, two guys in front.
You can't really look at it that way. Those two are out the front, churning away a lot harder than probably we were behind, and it was obviously would have been awesome if we did catch them, but we didn't, and I'm very happy with third.
This is the best start to the year you've had for a couple of seasons.
Oh, I'd say since I've been a pro, I think. They say you get older and better, so hopefully the next few years can get even more exciting.
Well done.
Thanks.
All smiles on the podium. Peter Van Petegem receiving the applause of a large crowd here in Meerbeker. And he really was the last Belgian rider to win this back in 1999. Since then, André Schmil won in 2000. He is now a naturalised Belgian. And Frank Vandenbroucke getting second. A 1-2, the same result back in 1999. But Stuart O'Grady getting his highest ever finish in a one-day classic race. And Australia's best finish since Phil Anderson back in 1988 when he was second. So the remnants of the thousands of people who watched the Tour of Flanders now making their way home, very satisfied. A Belgian 1-2. But you know, when you have a course like that, it's very difficult not to be an attacking rider, isn't it? It was a fabulous race, this one. I hope you enjoyed it. Until the next time, for Paul Sherwin, I'm Phil Liggett saying so long. Colnago is one of the perennial favourites of riders